Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. The countdown to football is on. Utes, Cougars, NFL, high school, it's all on the horizon. High school kids kick off Thursday and Friday this week. You can see tons of games at KSLSports.com. We're going to start you off this morning with the NFL. PK and I talking with Jason Cole, longtime NFL reporter. Here's our conversation. The offseason has been dominated by the Rams. The Seahawks won the Super Bowl, but the Rams won the offseason. Do you have the Rams as the clear favorite going into this year? Is it Seattle? Is it somebody else?
It's a good question. And I would say that the Rams are the most desperate team because they know this is Stafford's last year, probably McVay's last year. So they're all in on this one. And I think that they get a sense with Donald that, they got one more shot with Donald. So I would give them that nod based on desperation. And I would also go that, they have the best quarterback on that side. Now, I know that, Seattle won the title, but I just still don't believe in Sam Darnold. And the defense was great, but I just get the feeling that they're repeating what they did with Russell Wilson, which most fans would take what they did with Russell Wilson. That'd be great. But I don't see them winning a second title with this iteration. You got to have a better quarterback than that.
Speaking of quarterbacks, where do you stand on rookies playing the first year? Obviously with the Raiders, Mendoza, and they got Cousins over there. So some have had success, some haven't. What do you think?
I think it sort of depends on do you actually have a plan on when you're going to get him on the field? So with Mendoza, I sort of understand not starting him right away, but when do you plan to get him on the field? Because it should be sooner than later with a guy who's this mature, this knowledgeable, this much experience, having played essentially 5 years of college football, being a slightly older guy. So it slightly surprises me, but both sides have worked. I mean, like Mahomes sat for a year, right?
Yeah.
Didn't play the first year. I mean, he's great. Carson Palmer had a great career. He didn't play his first year. So there's something to it. There's also, here's a really important part. Can you actually protect your guy? And again, there are some guys out there, and I know Pete Priskin used to argue about this all the time. He'd say, guys are experienced in college. They know what they're doing. Just get them out there and play. And he really believes in that. Well, okay, what happened with David Carr?
Yeah.
You got him out there. You couldn't protect him. He became a shell of himself, and that's the number one overall pick that, had a very disappointing career. So I'm iffy on it. I think I leave it to the judgment of football people. But I also always ask, what is the plan here to get him on the field? And it should be sooner than later in this era, but maybe not right away.
In the NFL, we see teams go from worst to first and put together tremendous turnarounds. The Bears went from fourth in the NFC North to first. They're plus 5 or 6 wins last year. That was great. Now, there are a couple teams who went from third place to first. Jacksonville was like plus 9 wins. New England improved 10 wins over the prior year. Who do you think will do it this year? Who will be that team? And if I said it's going to be the Giants, do you think I'm crazy?
No, the Giants can't, because I think the division is weak, right? So if you don't believe in the division, if you don't think Philly is going to be that good this year, and I do have some real serious doubts about Philly, the makeup of that team is questionable. If you don't believe in the Cowboys, which I don't, I just think they're frauds. If you don't really truly believe in Washington, but I would say you're picking a couple of good candidates, or we have sort of arrived at it, between the Giants and Washington that could really step up. Now, Washington wasn't that bad last year. The Giants were, so there's more room for improvement there. The Dolphins aren't going anywhere. Minnesota, I'm kind of curious about, can they do sort of do a little bit of a rebound? They're getting Kyler Murray. Again, I don't believe in Kyler Murray long term. I don't think that's a solution. But you kind of wonder, is that a team that can rebound a little bit? The Raiders would be fun to pick, but they're not going anywhere in that division. I mean, it's just that division is too top heavy. And obviously, like a team, you would say a team like Arizona, they're not going anywhere, despite the fact that they got a good rookie running back who can, sort of stabilize that team. But that division is just too top heavy. So I think, you settled in on the Giants is a pretty good target.
Now, you mentioned that Cardinals running back, and what was he taking, third? And I think the year before, Genty out of Boise State was a high pick. It seemed like for a while there that the NFL teams had shied away from running backs that high, and now we've got two pretty high back-to-back, obviously. Is that something that you see going forward, or that we can find one later?
I think that most of the time you're still going to try and find one later because the value there's not a lot of market value in taking a running back in the first round unless you know you're going to absolutely play him right away and you have no answer there, right? Or if you happen to think that he's truly special. And I think the case of Genty, I think he's going to be special despite the fact that he struggled a little bit his rookie year. I think Love, good player. I'm not sure he's a great player. I think that this was a really weak draft, and that's why that forced the running back up. But I will say, like in an overall sense, football goes through these iterations. Everybody plays wide open for a while, so what do defenses have to do? Defenses have to get quick and small and be able to cover because everybody goes wide open. Well, as soon as the defenses are primarily quick and small and fast to cover wide open football, it's like, okay, now let's go back to playing power football, right? And let's play that iteration of football. And now if you're going to play power football, you better get an explosive running back who can take advantage of that. So that this is sort of the ebbs and flows of how football works. And I don't think that it ever really lasts anymore because people change their style of play so quickly because they're capable of changing their style of play so quickly. And the one thing I'll also add on top of this, and I really worry about this for football generally, in the case of the Texas lineman going back to college after trying to make it in the NFL, like there's going to be a lot of old guys playing offensive line in the college level until they figure out a way to change these rules, right? Well, if there's a bunch of old guys playing college football who can't make it in the NFL, who are the young guys who are going to develop in college who can play in the NFL, right? So the NFL pretty soon is going to have some serious offensive line issues, not having good enough players there. And, I mean, we're talking by soon, I mean within the next 3 to 4 years, where you just don't have guys who can hold up. And it's going to change the way that you play football in very significant ways. So the NFL better be looking at how do they develop offensive linemen, how do they get some young guys out there and give them actual experience and teach them what they're doing. Until college football changes what their makeup is. And I'm not sure that college football has a real hope on how to change that unless the politicians get involved, and that's a mess.
Kansas City Chiefs were the story for years. They either won the title or you had to beat them to win the title. They went 6-11 last year. Now, part of that is obviously Mahomes with the knee injury, and they lost their last 6 games. But nonetheless, they were 6-5 after 11 games. They weren't exactly dominating. How far back do they come? I can see them being in the mix for the playoffs. I can't see them being in the mix for the Super Bowl. It feels like they've missed on too many draft picks, and Mahomes is too expensive. Do you buy any or all of that?
Oh, I don't believe it. Look, I don't believe the expense part. That's a really convenient argument for people. But even if the cap is $300 million, even if you're paying your quarterback $55 or $60 million, that leaves $240 million for the rest of your roster, right? And rookie salaries are pretty stagnant. So your rookies are only making about, total about $25-30 million. Your minimum salary guys are stagnant too. So there's a ton of cash left to pay guys. What the Chiefs have missed on is they haven't gotten any wide receivers. Xavier Worthy, has not panned out. He's not become what they want him to do. They want him to become another version of Tyreek Hill, and he's just not a very good football player. He doesn't know how to get open. He doesn't know how to go get the ball. He's not a very tough kid. Got Rashee Rice, who doesn't put a priority on playing football. And he's a good, solid football player. I think they overvalue him because they're so desperate. He's going to be a really good number 3. But he's not a great player, and he's not a great player who puts his total emphasis and total love into football. He's distracted by too many other stupid things. So who's the wide receiver on that team that you trust right now? I mean, Travis Kelce, the tight end, still a nice player, but, he's showing his age. So they need more help from Mahomes. And I know they, going out and getting Kenneth Walker gives them a little bit more balance to their offense and gives them a guy who's a little more explosive than Pacheco. But I think he's only a little bit more explosive than Pacheco, not a lot. And so I just don't like where they're going offensively. I think that, if they get their injuries under control and everything else, they're back to a 9-10, maybe an 11-win team, and in the playoffs the way you talk about it. But they don't have guys who scare the defense, other than Mahomes. And Mahomes dummied it 2 years ago, dummied it up really well until they got to the Super Bowl and they got overwhelmed by the Eagles. So I'm just really wondering, as the Hunt family sort of said, okay, we won our titles, we had a nice run, we're now just going to cash out and take the money and just have Mahomes and Reed, and they'll make it work somehow, and we'll be okay.
Preseason football is upon us. We've had one game, and now it really ramps up here coming up in a few days. What's your assessment on if young guys, particularly rookies, shine? How much stock do you put into that?
Look, these are times when only the rookies play. When only rookies play, you see really vanilla football. You don't see exotic coverages. You don't see a lot of change. I don't put a lot of stock, not just in preseason, but I don't put a lot of stock in the first 2 or 3 regular season games. Not that they don't count. Don't get me wrong. But your veterans aren't playing until then. So they're not ready to hit. They're not ready to tackle. So you see a lot of really bad football in the first 2 or 3 weeks. And I don't think teams round into shape until you get to week 4, 5, 6. And then you have a real idea of what teams are like. It's nice to see football, and obviously it has some meaning for the young guys who are playing. And coaches are measuring it, and they want to see what the mistakes are. They want to see who knows how to handle it. Carson Beck is doing a nice job in that first game, and you'd like to think maybe the Cardinals have something to work with, and that was nice. But we're talking the level of football they're playing right now for the next few weeks is not even close to what it's going to be by week 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, I asked that because my sister has season tickets for the Cardinals, and she wants to know how good Carson Beck's going to be.
Well, you saw about from Carson Beck in college is a lot more indicative of what he really is, which is a nice solid college quarterback who made some critical mistakes in key games. And until he does that in regular season games, until you see him change that, I don't believe the Hall of Fame game is any real strong indicator of what he is in his career. Like, I just don't believe that he's like a full-time starter. Hey, prove me wrong, man. Like, that's the beauty of the game. Like, go become a star. Like, this is awesome. But football has just preseason football is not what it used to be, and it's going to continue to change as we get towards 18 games, and coaches become even more protective of their players and don't want to play them very much in preseason or even in training camp because they got so many games to worry about.
Look at the Broncos as 20-1 favorites to win the Super Bowl. That's a team that was in the AFC title game but didn't have their quarterback as Bo Nix was hurt. Shouldn't they have better odds there? How do you think they stack up at the top of the AFC?
You would say that, except it's a year where, Baltimore dipped and wasn't very good either. Cincinnati Didn't get their defense together. Dipped. Like, did they take advantage? Kansas City, we just talked about what happened with Kansas City. Was Denver really good, or did they take advantage of a year? And you can say this about New England, too. Did they take advantage of a year when everybody was down? And I think that's the theory on Denver. What I tend to believe is they're a very well-coached team with high demands from a great leader who knows how to max out the most from his talent, who did cover up some things with their defense early on. The defense got a little weaker as time went on, but it's still pretty good. And the wild card is Bo Nix. The wild card is where is the ceiling, where is the floor for Bo Nix? And he's one of those guys where it's like, you don't know, like, can Sean Payton coax him into being a star and to becoming more consistent and becoming a guy who can really attack? Because you don't see that all the time from Bo Nix, but you do see some highlight reel stuff at the end of games, right? Can he become more consistent? Or is it the Bo Nix where in college, between his two stops in college, there were times where he was cratering, right? And looked like he might fall through the floor. He didn't, and he got through it, but he's one of those guys who's like super erratic. Right? And I think I'm belaboring my point here. And I just don't trust him yet. But I'm still curious about him. I'm still excited to see what he's going to be. And if it's the upshot, then Denver's a serious contender. If it's a downshot, or he just continues to kind of muddle along, then they'll muddle along. So this is going to be carried largely on the future of Bo Nix.
There's Jason Cole. When we come back, we're going to switch to the Utes and the Cougars. Stay with us right here on The Zone. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Yesterday, we were joined by Steve Bartle, who covers the Utes for KSL. Here's our conversation with Steve.
So the big thing is, the 5 offensive linemen. And we know that several of them got a lot of on-the-field experience last year because the Utes had a lot of good games in which they could rotate guys in. Now, it wasn't with the games on the line and all that stuff, although they did play in the bowl game. So what do you take from that as far as a bunch of guys who got dozens of snaps last year, but weren't starters? How does that translate into when they've got to line up when the game is on the line and you're going against the first-team defense?
Yeah, that is the big question mark for Utah is that offensive line. And, Coach Gross shared with us at his immediate availability last week is that he feels he's got 10 offensive linemen that they feel comfortable with that could play, and so, while that's encouraging on one hand that they feel they have 10 guys, 10 deep, it's about finding that best combination of 5. And, with the guys that played last year, there were a couple of guys, Soloto Amoyai and Keith Olson, that played, a combined 800-ish snaps last year because they were, utilized as 6th and 7th offensive linemen. And Utah liked that personnel package last year, used it quite a bit. And, those 2 guys are going to be key figures in sort of setting the examples and how things are done. And so I think it's valuable that obviously that Utah was able to rotate those 2 guys in pretty consistently each and every week. And then, as you mentioned, there were a couple other guys, Zeraway Williams and Alex Harrison, where those guys, got some mop-up duty. And Utah had a lot of mop-up duty last year. And so those guys, also gained some valuable experience getting on the field, in a game day atmosphere at Rice-Eccles Stadium or on the road. And yeah, it's not the same as, being in the heat of of the competition, in those first halves and third quarters, but still to get on the field, to kind of get into a certain sort of get to a level of comfort, performing on the field under the bright lights, I think is valuable. But, clearly there's still significant questions around the offensive line, and the experience that they gained last year is still fairly minimal. So I think that is the big question mark for Utah in fall camp, is finding the starting five, finding 3 or 4 players that you feel can, round out your depth, potentially create even a rotation, and move forward from there. In terms of, the makeup and maybe some of the strengths of this group, I feel like Utah has some pretty solid athletes up front where, pass protection might be the strength of this group. My question is, how physical are they going to be, in the run game? That's what Utah's offensive line was last year. They were, clean, assignment sound, and physical, overwhelmingly physical, outside of a couple matchups. And so, that's going to be the big question mark. They've got to establish a certain level of physicality, and that's going to be the key over the next couple of weeks now that the pads are on.
When Kevin McGivern, offensive coordinator, talks about Devin Dampier and finding out what's best for his skill set, what is he going to find out, and what might be different than last year? Because it looked like last year's offense was pretty well set up for his skill set, although they were running the ball behind a dominant offensive line, so that makes things pretty simple and straightforward. But maybe Morgan has appetite for more risk than Kyle did. So what's this going to end up looking like?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of fascinated to see what it actually looks like. We got to see a lot of the offense in spring ball. We got to watch a lot of practice, and it was probably due to the fact that it was spring ball, but we saw a lot of passing game. We saw, we didn't see as much run game as we saw the year previous in spring ball. And that probably is due to wanting to limit the level of physicality that you're playing with in spring, but also I think it is kind of indicative of where they want to take this offense. And so with Dampier, he came from New Mexico, and the big question was, how is he going to improve his touchdown to interception ratio? And lo and behold, he comes to Utah, where there was a lot of talent, up front at the skill positions, maybe not the elite talent, but certainly more than he had at New Mexico, and at least at the skill positions. And, for Dampier, it was about becoming more of an efficient decision maker, taking care of the ball. And I think that was something that he really embraced in coming to Utah. Well, now it's, the offensive line has moved on. I think now it's about, kind of, going back to the closet and finding that Superman cape, playing the way that he did at New Mexico. It's about now marrying that efficiency, that decision-making that he developed last year, while also embracing a little bit more of that, playmaker at quarterback like he was. And he was still really good last year, doing it as a dual-threat quarterback, finishing with over 3,300 yards and 34 touchdowns. But he's going to have to likely create a little bit more than he did last year. He's not going to be able to sit in the pocket for 5-6 seconds, without pressure bearing down on him. There's likely going to be pressure in his face consistently, and he's got to overcome it. And for Dampier, he understood what this season is going to ask of him. He's trimmed up about 10, 15 pounds, so he's slimmer and back to the playing weight he was at New Mexico. He was playing last year at around 220. And I think that's going to kind of give him that, he was elusive last year, but I think just kind of getting back to what we saw at New Mexico a little bit more. And then again, it's about the decision making and embracing some of this passing game stuff. And I think that's where, Dampier's, we can only assess like what we've seen, what we've heard throughout the offseason, but it seems like Dev took the offseason really seriously in working on, working within the playbook, getting out to the, setting up player run practices and working quite a bit with his receivers to develop that chemistry. So, he did all that he could this offseason to put himself in position to take that next step as a quarterback. And that's going to be, we'll see what that actually looks like this season once they get under the bright lights and they kick off and all that. But that's sort of where they want to take this, is they want the ball in Dampier's hands. They want him to be that, that playmaker, that efficient decision maker, and just be that quarterback that they need to help them contend in the Big 12.
Compared to last season, how do you think the new offensive regime is going to utilize Ficklin?
That's a great question, PK. I think Bird, he's going to be kind of a key piece to the offense. He accounted for 13 touchdowns last year, and not all of those were in mop-up duty. I think only a handful of those, came, late in the fourth quarter. He played a lot last year in the thick of the competition coming in for Dampier. And obviously, Dampier's health kind of contributed to that and allowed Ficklin to get on the field as a quarterback. I think this year, you could see his role expand to becoming more of a versatile weapon while still, incorporating him as a passer. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, how exactly they utilize him. But I do think they want to get him on the field and do some different things. I think, they want to involve him in the passing game as a receiver. They want to, get him in the backfield and potentially hand the ball off. He is just a dynamic athlete that I think Utah is going to explore, a lot of different ways that they can get him on the field, with Dampier still on the field as well. So, he's going to be, a pretty significant piece to the offense this season, which, too, I think is still geared around developing him as a quarterback because, he is the guy that is expected to take over once Dampier's career comes to an end.
Parker's talked about being not just 1,000-yard rusher, but what about 1,200? And there's people wondering about 1,500 if he averages 100 a game. Do you think there are that many carries in it in the run game this year for him?
Yeah, I think that's going to be really interesting with Parker and what this run game looks like. Like, I do think he is set up to be the undisputed, top running back. I don't think we're going to see a situation like we saw last year with N'Keary Rodgers, carrying the bulk of the load, early on in the season. This is going to be Parker's, backfield from the beginning of the season on. And, what he showed, over those last couple of weeks was, truly dynamic playmaking. And I think there's a lot of, excitement around what he can become in this offense. I don't think Utah is as concerned with getting him to 1,000 or 1,200. And frankly, it's a goal that Parker has, but he's also acknowledged that he's more focused on the team aspect. And so I think 1,200 yards, yeah, it's a bit greedy. It's a bit high. But I think 1,200 total yards, I think that's going to be really doable for him because it sounds like, McGibbon wants to incorporate the running backs in the passing game quite a bit more than what we saw last year under Jason Beck. And I think that's an area of the game where Parker can actually be, really dynamic and expand his skill set and production. So, I think he's certainly capable of getting to 1,200 rushing yards. He has the athleticism. He has the big playability. But I think to your point, DJ, is what is that workload going to be like? When you have a dual-threat quarterback like Dampier and like Bird Ficklin, they're going to account for a lot of carries. Can he get to 150, 160, 170, 80 carries? If he can get to 170, 1,000 yards is definitely going to be within reach. It's just, does he get there? That's going to be a big question. And I think with him starting the season as the unquestioned RB1 and the guy that they want to feature, I think it's certainly, doable to get to that number. But the presence of two dual threat quarterbacks that Utah also wants to involve in the run game in Dampier and Ficklin, that's also going to take some carries away from him. So I think 1,200 yards is definitely doable for him. Total yards, rushing is going to be, a little greedy.
That's what I'm interested to see with Dampier. You know, we saw at New Mexico, he was lighting it up big time. And, he had a very good season at Utah Shore, for no doubt about it. But we're expecting more. But at the same time, Scally has kind of dropped, I don't know if they're hints, but just inclinations of getting the ball downfield much more than they have been in the past. He's willing to not experiment, but see how it goes. So I'm wondering how Dampier is going to balance that, because of the fact that I always thought this team with him at quarterback, when it's third and short, is virtually unstoppable, because it's almost impossible for him to not get 2 or 3 yards virtually anytime he wants. At the same time, they want to get the ball downfield. How do you think all that's going to balance out?
Yeah, I think that's going to rest on the shoulders of Dampier to become a sound decision maker in those moments. That is going to be the big key for him. When we were talking about things that have to happen this season for Utah, one of the key factors for me was Dampier, increasing, the rate at which he's making decisions. He's got to make quick decisions to get the ball out of his hands, first and foremost, to protect the offensive line. But then, too, deepening his understanding of when to take those shots and when not to, when to tuck it. That's going to be, a big determining factor on, one, how explosive this offense is, but also how efficient it is. That's got to be on Dampier to really make it a point of emphasis to improve his decision making. They've upgraded that wide receiver room, where they now have, players in that room that can threaten, the intermediate and deeper areas of the field way more consistently than they could last year. I think there was a ceiling on the passing game on how efficient down the field they could be. They just didn't have the guys that could attack and get deeper down the field consistently. Now with Braden Pagan, with Kyrie Scholes and Ricky Johnson added to, a Larry Simmons and some of these other players, they now have players that raise the ceiling a little bit on, how consistently they can push the ball down the field. There's obviously a lot of criticism of Dampier and his arm strength and, his ability to push the ball down the field, but he was incredibly efficient and accurate in the 10 to 19-yard range. And, now you're going to have receivers that can access those areas of the field much more frequently, much more consistently, and that's going to help Dampier push the ball down the field a little bit more, even just pushing it, from 9 yards to 12 yards in terms of the average depth of target. Now you're pushing it 15, 16 yards down the field more consistently, which is just going to expand the passing game. So I feel like that's where Dampier has to develop is, one, his decision-making, and then his ability and chemistry with those receivers, in the intermediate areas of the field.
Well, we just spent an entire segment talking about the offense. How about that? Not a defensive question in there. That's pretty solid work by us, don't you think?
I think it's what everybody's curious about. Obviously with Colton Swan taking over, there's some intrigue there, but I think everybody wants to see this offense because it has been a lot of receiver talk, and Scally hasn't been shy to talk about it. It's what the people want to hear, DJ.
Exactly.
I agree.
And that's why we did it. Steve, thanks so much. We appreciate it. We'll have you back to talk defense later, but that's just what we say before we talk offense again for an entire segment.
Amen. Appreciate you guys.
All right, there's Steve Bartle. When we come back, we're going up on the hill, and we're going down to Provo to talk to Utes and Cougars, including Kelly Poppinga, the defensive coordinator at BYU, and Luther Elliss, coaching the D-line at Utah. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Luther Elliss has been on the coaching staff, excellent defensive lineman at the University of Utah as a player, long NFL career, now back at the U coaching. Here's Luther meeting with the media.
I kind of want to ask you a little bit about Morgan.
Love him.
You've seen his evolution from defensive coordinator to now head coach. I guess just what is it like, or what has it been like behind the scenes just to kind of see him rise into this role that he's currently in now?
Yeah, it's been, I think this has been 20 years or however long he's been here in the making and in the coming, right? Just he's gotten to see great coaching. He's got to be around great coaching and just experience from a player to a coach to like a GA assistant, all those things. He's kind of taken it all in. He's kind of done the whole thing, whole gamut to really take in what it would mean someday to be a head coach. And in my opinion, he's done a great job of just taking the bits and pieces that he would want to do and to build the team that he sees to be a championship team. And that's what RSNB is. It's his culture. It's what he's seen over the years and how he saw success, and that's what's being implemented. So excited for him and what we're doing here, and excited that he's our chief. He's taking us where we're going to go, and really excited to see his vision lived out.
Multiple guys on this defensive line have talked just about the chip on the shoulder of, heading into the season after everything that went down last year. How have you seen the guys in your room, attack things maybe in the off season and even in these first couple days of camp?
Yeah, I think off season, the strength coaches did an excellent job in helping them to get on the mass, to get bigger, get stronger, but not lose speed or quickness. And it's translating to the field currently right now. And I think that makes the kids excited and about what they've done. And again, it's not just the strength room, it's nutrition. It's everything that we have going on here. The people we have here are experts, and they're doing an excellent job with our guys and helping them to prepare and become their best. But I think for as the kids, they see that, and now I have other tools, quote unquote, right? A little added weight and things that I can play better. I can do things that maybe I couldn't do in the past because I wasn't strong enough or I wasn't quick enough, and now they are. And so, right now, even the first couple of days, it's still a little experimentation because you got to get used to that new weight and playing football. I tell people this all the time, like, you can condition all you want, all these, do all sorts of drills and everything, it's still not football conditioning. Just because for us, it's like wrestling. We're wrestling a 300-pound guy, and then I'm told to turn and sprint and then come back and do it again, right? It's hard to train and quite equip everybody for that, but the guys are taking what they've built, and now they're using it to become better. And also it's competition, right? The guys in my room, there's no starters right now. It's just everybody's fighting to do that, and they're young, they're hungry, and I love their attitude.
How are your transfers coming along here at the start of fall camp?
They're doing an excellent job. They've bought into our culture and who we are and what we do. They understand the importance of that and living that, and they've stepped in and done an excellent job. Talent-wise, they're right there. They're all competing to play and or start. So it's been great to have Jamal and Lucas and Jai and these guys come in and are really going to help us this year.
Coach, Carson Kafusi has received a lot of praise for his leadership. Just what's allowed him to take on that role at such a young age in his career?
I think one is who he is, right? That's how he identifies himself, sees himself as that, and he's living it out now, and he has permission to do that. Not that he didn't have it right away. It's just I think everybody kind of wants to earn their stripes first, right? I don't want to come in talking a lot. I want to come and show you what I can do, perform like I should, and then I've kind of earned the right to speak, and he's for sure really earned that right to speak, and I think the guys respect him because of that. And honestly, he's a large presence, right? He's 6'6", 7, 8, whatever he is, 300+ pounds, and he's a deer, right? It's just amazing what he can do. So when you command that respect, when you walk into the room, I think guys naturally look up to you as a leader, and he's being able to voice that.
All right, there's Utah's Luther Elliss. Now let's switch to Provo and hear from defensive coordinator Kelly Poppinga.
Kelly, what's your rotation look like on the defensive line? Do you still plan on doing you guys have been rotating quite a bit there.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of guys that I think are ready to play. Keanu and Bodie and Vil, Anisi, who else? Justin Kirtland. I think there's some younger guys too as well that are coming along. So I feel like we're good 6 or 7 deep at that spot right now, where we can be pretty stout but pretty athletic at the same time.
What sort of things do you think that they're going to be good at this year that maybe you've been working on over the summer?
Yeah, I think just a continuing progression of just being, stout in the run game. I think that everybody's always working on that. But I think we're getting more athletic, more quick. I think Bodie and Vil, with the experience they got a year ago, I think they're going to bring another level of experience, but then also quickness and athleticism. But I think we should be super big and physical, and hopefully on the line of scrimmage, so we can do some other stuff too as well.
What are the advantages you see in having that kind of depth on the defensive line?
Yeah, just the things that I said before, being able to own the line of scrimmage. And some of these games get long, right? So we got to be able to rotate, especially early in the season when it's hot and we're trying to get acclimated to that stuff. But I feel like the depth, not just at the defensive line, but the outside backers, the inside backers, our whole front seven, I feel very confident with the 2 to 3 deep in that.
How you feeling about your linebacking core? How's Cade integrated in?
Yeah, great. Cade's fit in well. I feel really good about them. We got 6 guys that have started games for us before, so to be able to get all those guys on the field and keep all those guys happy, that's going to be a challenge. They're all playing really well right now. It's super competitive, but yeah, I feel like we got 6 guys that I could put in at any time and know that they're going to go in there and do their job.
Where's the defense at right now as compared to maybe a year ago?
I would like to say we're further ahead. I mean, we've been in this scheme now for 4 years, so there's been additions to some stuff that we're doing. Some of that stuff's integrated really well, but a lot of that stuff we installed in the spring, we installed in the summer, and now doing it again. But for the most part, I mean, yeah, this defense, the terminology of it, the schematics of it, the base of that stuff they've known for a long time. So I think hopefully we're playing faster, hopefully we're playing more physical. I'd have to go back and watch film from last year, but I feel I'm pleased, and I know the other coaches are very pleased where we are after practice 5.
How much of a numbers guy are you in terms of setting goals and
big
trying to reach those?
I'm a big numbers guy, big stats guy. We do a lot of stuff goal-wise that way, but also statistically based upon like our self-scout. If certain calls aren't reaching an efficiency to the percentage that we like, then those calls probably go away and we try something else.
What are a couple of numbers that you're going to be paying special attention to?
I always pay attention. To me, it always starts with the run game and being able to hold that number under 3 yards or less. So if a call is not holding 3 yards or less in the run game, there's something either we got to fix or something we got to get rid of. And then, third downs, 33% or less in conversion rate for the offense. We want to make sure, and that's right where we were at a year ago. So we just were at our goal a year ago at that. And then in the red zone, we got to be really good in the red zone, and we want 45% or less touchdowns. So if we hold them to a field goal, we feel like we win in that situation. We get a turnover, obviously we win, but we don't want them, once they get inside the 20, we want to hold them out. So those are, I would say, 3 probably the main goals that we're trying to reach as a defense.
What's been like in safety? You don't have Falatau right now. You also don't have Tanner Wall. Obviously, he's graduated. What are guys like Raider and them doing?
Yeah, Raider looks great. Tommy looks great. Cannon has been a guy that's emerged as well. I know I'm forgetting somebody right now. There's somebody else. Kalama's look good. There's somebody else too I'm missing. But anyway, I think of the guys that we have out there, I think we have 6 guys that are capable of starting for us, and that's without Falatau. So just like I can't speak enough of our depth. Now we just got to continue to develop. And, some of these guys are looking great in practice, but a practice rep compared to a game rep is completely different, right? So just being able to get, hopefully early in the season, get some game reps with some of these guys so that we can continue to build their confidence and that game experience as the season goes on.
Has the timeline changed on Falatau at all?
No, I think we're right on schedule, and I think, I think he'll be back sooner than everybody thinks.
Can you draw any comparison to maybe, let's go deep into your tenure at Virginia, power conference defense, what that looks like on a day-to-day basis to where BYU is right now that you're a few years in?
Yeah, I think, probably in our second or third year at Virginia was our best defense there. And I think we're right there. The strength that we have, the size that we have, the speed that we have. I think as a team, I'm not talking just defensively, as a team, this is as fast as a BYU team as I've seen. And that's losing some of our faster guys from a year ago. So it's a fast team. I think we're physical. I think we have the makings to be a very good team. We just got a lot of time to continue to build and see where we can take this thing. Hunk Riddle, right?
Hey, man, I was just going to ask you a question. Pads are on now. Guys are starting to get a little competitive. Looked like there could have been a coach saying, "Hey, keep them up." Yeah. What happened there on the sideline?
Yeah, so there's every practice has its rules of engagement, and today was thud tempo, and so the rules of engagement are: if you can see their eyes, we thud them up and we tackle and we wrap them up. If you're coming at an angle, you should be tagging off, and that's what happened there at the end of practice. Is we should have tagged up instead of pushing somebody in the back, and we're just trying to keep guys healthy as best as we can. And so somebody crossed the line, and that was not good, so he's held accountable for that.
In what ways have some of your new position coaches helped the overall defense?
Yeah, I think Tomorrow and Lewis have brought great just new insights on how to do different things and coverages that maybe we haven't done here in the past and really haven't done in this coaching tree. And so there's been some things out of there, and then some stuff, like I've told everybody, there's some stuff that I've done with Bronco as well. So being able to just use all that knowledge that we've all had from all the different places that we've been, and then be able to take what we think as a staff is the best thing for this place, for this team at this time. But those guys have brought great insight in that. And then Chad Kahaha, just with his edge play and his detail there, I just think, we have a great group of edge coaches with him and Coach Sione and Coach Anderson, and then myself that's coached that. I think we have 4 or 5 guys that have coached that at a high level, and so I think that defensive front's getting coached very well right now.
There's Kelly Poppinga. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NFL.
Jerry Rice or Antonio Brown? I'm taking Antonio Brown.
Keep going.
I don't care.
Thank you guys for watching the Speakeasy. Boys out the mud. We got LaShawn McCoy.
What? Bro, y'all.
I'm not going to get distracted.
Yeah, y'all can't. All right, that's one. 2 is y'all acting like, what am I saying wrong? What can Jerry Rice do that AB can't do?
Jerry Rice got, 3 Super Bowls?
He got
the
Super Bowl.
22,000 yards.
Bump the Super Bowl.
He's got,
Jerry Rice
he had a
like
1,000-yard receiving season at
42, bro.
42.
Yo,
Yeah,
my man. Hey, you don't think AB can do that? See, y'all talking like that because AB's career.
Yes, your career makes you.
LaShawn McCoy, The Take, Antonio Brown, and Jerry Rice. How would you take Antonio Brown over Jerry Rice? I thought in the GOAT conversations, Gretzky and Rice are about as settled as it gets. Maybe Muhammad Ali.
And Magic.
Nope, I don't think Magic's as settled as it gets. You'll go greatest point guard, or are you talking GOAT in basketball versus Jordan?
Whatever you want.
Okay. You're starting a new one here. Here you go.
So was LaShawn McCoy.
Yes, he was.
And you're talking about it. So you fell into the trap. I baited you and you fell right into it.
Piece of cake.
Always food with you.
True story. Giants quarterback Jackson Dart, former Corner Canyon star, lauded for opting to slide during practice, something he was not big on doing last year, which is why he got hit hard and was checked for concussion symptoms on 5 different occasions. Linebacker Brian Burns said, "We've been begging him to do that for a while. I'm glad he started to practice it."
Well, Riley and I had this discussion in depth. He's very loud. He tries to outshout me. I don't know why he thinks that's
going right at your strength.
Going to ever work. This idea of being a leader and blah, 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 blah. Well, if you're a leader, then you're going to do it. Oh, but that's not his... Yeah, I know. He's got masculinity. He's tough. He's all these cliches, blah, 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 blah. But you're also a failed leader if you don't do it. And he doesn't have to prove his toughness. That's long since been proven. What he needs to prove is that you're a leader and don't do things that are stupid. That's what leaders do. They don't have to prove their toughness. It's already been proven.
Prove you can stay on the field for 17 consecutive games, and then, as you get better, 18, 19, and 20 in the playoffs.
I don't know that he can do that. That's 2 different things. If he gets steamrolled by somebody who weighs 100 pounds more than him, that's not his fault.
If he gets hurt, then it'll be judged on how did the injury happen and what does it look like.
Right, so I can't guarantee anybody's going to stay out on the field. You can be the toughest guy in the world, but if you have a broken leg, Cam Scadaboo had that very thing last year. Did he not prove he's tough? I mean, yes, he's proven it probably in Little League football. So injuries happen, but you don't need your quarterback being irresponsible about it. That's the most important thing.
You don't need to take on linebackers because if you do, then you will not play.
Don't take on anybody.
Straight games. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Safeties can blow you up too. Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy back with the team following a 2-week absence. His wife shot allegedly by their son at the family's home in Virginia, so he had been away from camp for a couple weeks, and now he's back. Dallas Cowboys lockup star defensive tackle Quinnen Williams, 3 years, $105.9 million extension, 101 guaranteed, and a signing bonus almost $32 million. The money in the NFL just keeps getting bigger and bigger as the cap just keeps going up and up. DJ and PK.
College football.
Class of 22 athletes getting an extra year of eligibility, impacting the Big 12. Arizona running back Ismail Mahdi and Max Harris have rejoined the team. Following the court ruling, Gotti was the Wildcats' leading rusher a year ago with 853 yards and 4 touchdowns. Harris was an all-Big 12 honorable mention after finishing with 78 tackles. A couple of impact guys back, PK, for a team that we should already be keeping our eye on.
Yeah, for sure.
Former Raider and Saint quarterback Derek Carr joining Bob Chesney's staff at UCLA as a special advisor to the head coach. He'll work with quarterbacks and offensive strategy with the staff. DJ and PK.
NBA.
My success as a team is more successful than LeBron. I got 6 rings.
Okay, so then if I talk to an NBA owner, by the way, this is very helpful because realize this is very helpful because for me as a fan, I've followed this. So if I speak from an NBA standpoint, owner, and I want to find an all-around player to be my number one, you think the average owner is going to pick you or LeBron?
I don't know.
Got it. Okay, so that.
You want individual accolades or you want championships? Because I didn't chase mine.
That's Scottie Pippen comparing himself to LeBron James. I think an owner would pick LeBron James. But Scottie.
That's bold right there, big guy.
Yeah. Well, he was the number 2 guy on 6 championship teams, and when he was the number 1 guy, Houston and Portland came up short. So there you go.
So did the Bulls.
Yeah, in the 2 years, right. In the 2 years he was gone.
Well, if you're going to use his argument, then I guess you'd go Robert Horry. He's got 7.
Opening night of the NBA season, all set. October 20th. Triple header. Pistons and Celtics. Sixers and Knicks. Thunder and Spurs. You like your triple header there, PK? Those matchups?
Yeah, it's fun.
Good enough?
They all play 82.
Christmas Day, Spurs and Knicks. Heat and Celtics. Sixers and Lakers. Thunder and Wolves. And then the Nuggets and the Warriors.
I don't know why Christmas Day is such a big deal. I got other things to do. Christmas Day. Like, wow. Christmas Day. As far as sports go, it's another day. They all play 82. Why is that day any bigger than any other day?
There's 5 games, all national TV, and people are free to watch them. But your point, you always had the tradition when you lived in L.A. of going to a matinee on MLK Day. The Lakers and Clippers would always have stuff set up. Which team was it that you went to? Which one usually had it, or did it go back and forth?
No, it never went back and forth.
Oh, really? It was all Lakers?
Yes. I didn't even know the Clippers played that day.
Demetrius Giannakopoulos, the Greek businessman who owns the Panathinaikos Basketball Club in Athens, said he made a proposal to the Nuggets to buy Nikola Jokic out of the final season's current NBA contract, and he believes he can sign Jokic away next summer. Giannakopoulos said that the Nuggets declined his offer quickly, but he will pursue the Joker once again when he's a free agent. Would a player still in his prime leave and go back to Europe when he's one of the 1, 2, 3 elite players in the NBA? I guess we'll find out. To date, not yet. Would the Joker be the first? Blazers owner Tom Dunn has reiterated he will not pay for any upgrades to the Moda Center, and Oregon's Multnomah County has now approved a term sheet to provide $101.6 million to renovate the arena as the franchise and the city of Portland begin formal discussions about their future. Will the city, the county, and the state keep him happy? Will he stay? Or are the Blazers the next team on the move? DJ and PK.
Major League Baseball.
That is swung on and hit well. Out to deep left, headed towards the bullpen. Grand slam, Arenado.
Line drive, base hit into the right field corner. In to score is Edman. Here comes Rojas, and here comes Tucker. A bases-clearing pinch-hit triple for Max Muncy.
Swung on and popped up into center field. What is Siegler? 2 down. The play is made out there in center field. I think the scoreboard had the outs wrong, and everybody screws it up. It's going to be a double play throw to first.
What
that
is
is
going
ridiculous. That is horrendous base running by the Red Sox. Horrendous.
It was a 16-minute delay to sort it out. The scoreboard said there were 2 outs. There was only 1. They ran into the double play, but they got a run out of it. Their only run of the game nonetheless. Anthony Siegler scoring from third base. It didn't tag up, but by the time they appealed it, they crossed the baselines, and you can't go back and appeal at that point. So everybody was confused, and the Red Sox got a run, and in the end, the Jays won the game anyway. So the Red Sox with a 3-game losing streak now for the first time in 2 months after their fantastic stretch, winning 30 out of 35 and getting themselves back in the playoff race. They got a 3-game losing streak now. Do you know that rule?
Oh, yeah, I studied it. There's nothing I don't know about baseball.
That's why I asked you. There's a lot you know about baseball. But there might be something that escaped your knowledge.
That's why I told you.
I'm not sure you're telling the truth.
Hey,
but
down at BYU yesterday, I got a compliment from both of you guys. Said gentleman that's down there doing work in BYU said he appreciates you guys talk as much baseball as you do.
Well, I have to bring him around. Guy's been dishonoring his father for years now. Phony. Sick of your white privilege.
That didn't even make sense. Just throw everything.
Of course it didn't to you. No kidding. But for me,
Throw
it does.
everything.
Absolutely. For me, it does. Of course, for you, it didn't. That's exactly why.
Throw everything against the wall and just hope something sticks. Scooble makes his debut at Dodger Stadium. Not a great start. Gave up 3 runs early, but then the team, he settles down. The team rallies. He went 5 innings, struck out 6. Dodgers rallied to beat the Royals 6-5. After losing 8 out of 9, they pick up a W. Can they get rolling again? Get themselves back in position for a bye in the opening round of the playoffs. Bees open a series in El Paso tonight against the Chihuahuas. First pitch hit for 6:35. Coverage on 1280 Zone starts with Tony Parks on the call at 6:20. Been a rough stretch here for the Bees as they have lost 11 of 12 over the last 2 weeks.
Now they're playing at Chihuahuas. You talk about rough.
Thank you. I don't think it'd be quite that deep. I don't think it'd be quite that deep. The Chihuahuas, smaller dog.
My sister had one named George, the meanest SOB you ever saw. That
a little higher.
That was good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she would go out of town, and I'd have to watch them. She had 2 dogs. She had a German Shepherd named Blue, and the Chihuahua named George. And I loved Blue, and I hated George.
Did you really? Why did you hate George?
Because he was so freaking mean.
Okay.
Like, you're supposed to have a dog you can mess around with him. Mm-hmm. George, you stay away from me at all times.
Little dog syndrome.
I mean, that guy. And she didn't want him to leave in the bedroom. And then when I'd be over there and have time to go, I couldn't get him out of the bedroom. So I had to have a friend of mine come with me. And then he would be in the hallway. I'd go outside, ring the door. And then George would go sprinting towards the door, barking like outstanding. And then my friend would shut the door. And then he'd say,
fool the dog.
Gotcha, George.
Fool the dog. The dog go under the bed? Little dog
he would go underneath, yeah.
Go under the bed.
He didn't have to duck.
Right. He'd run right under, and then no matter where you crawl
and if you reached out, he'd snap at you and try to snip. Oh, okay. So we had to...
the German Shepherd had a good personality?
Oh, yeah, he was mellow. It's fine.
Grew up with neighbors, had a German Shepherd, and that dog was a ton of fun. And then other times you hear German Shepherds, they can have an attitude. They can be a little on the mean side.
No, he was fun. He was just, a regular dog and just did his thing. Didn't want to be bothered.
Yep.
Eat crap, take him for a walk. No big deal. And but George, man, he was high maintenance.
DJ PK.
#RSL.
Real Salt Lake wraps up Leagues Cup group play tonight against FC Juarez. Kickoff set for 7:30 at America First Field. Coverage on the Zone will start at 6:30 with the RSL pre-match show. RSL needs a win tonight to get to 7 points. This is the last game of the opening phase here. But there are a bunch of teams on 6, so they're going to need some help. A couple of them play today, but several of them also play Wednesday and Thursday, so we may not know if they're through or eliminated for another day or two.
It's emblematic of your life. We all need some help.
Sing it.
It's hard to do it alone. I don't know what the song is, but it's
Beatles, help.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't very. I was just trying to keep it simple there. I missed though. Oh well.
Just we all need help, and so they need help, and I hope they get help.
Interesting to see who starts tonight and where they go as they rotate through here. Pablo Ruiz has been playing well. Will he be in the starting 11 tonight? Victor Olatunji has been struggling. Will he be in the starting 11 tonight? There's going to have to be some rotation here. Having just played Saturday, and they got another game Saturday. They're back in MLS play against Minnesota. So we'll see what Pablo Mastroeni cooks up tonight. What is trending? Brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Cougar fans, Mitch Harper, BYU Insider for KSL Sports, joins us coming up at 8:30. We'll get his thoughts on everything that happened over the weekend and who he's been able to talk to and what he knows and what he suspects. We'll talk with him at 8:30. Tim Brando, Fox Sports College Football Insider and basketball broadcaster at 9 o'clock. He's put out his list, his dirty dozen. Who's going to the playoffs? Tim always has a million thoughts on expanding the playoffs. Now we got this new proposal possibility. I don't know if it'll even get off the ground here,
teams?
But 20 teams, but it's 16, but it's 4 to play in. We're not going to 20. We're going to 16 with 4 playing games, trying to get around some language that would force ESPN to send the thing, let the thing go back out to bid and shorten the contract, and they don't want to do that. So we'll talk with Tim Brando coming up at 9 o'clock. The question of the day is next. Why? We'll get to that right after the break. Stay with us.
They've been doing it for a while.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
I think the Jazz want to make the playoffs this year, and they really have no motivation for not making the playoffs this year because their draft pick goes to the Memphis Grizzlies in the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade. How motivated are the Jazz actually going to feel to maximize the win total of this roster using all the assets available to them to get there? My guess is it's actually not as high as fans would think because they don't have to do anything exactly right.
The truth is they are dedicated to it. But that doesn't mean they have to do anything about it right now.
Sure.
But no, not one person in that building, if you went up to them and said, hey, is the Bosnian Beak your answer at center? Not one of them is going to say yes.
Right. Or Jackson Hayes.
Or any of that. No, they're not.
Yeah.
So, yes, they do need to address the problem, for sure. Do they need to address it right now?
I don't think so.
Absolutely not. No, why would they?
Catch Jake and Ben, afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. Next week, you can win tickets to see Motley Crue with performances by Tesla and Extreme at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on September 21st. Listen to KSL Sports Zone all day Wednesday for your chance to win. Question of the morning, why doesn't BYU give the football team more money? How come the program doesn't have more cash? We've heard about that over the last little bit here, combined with what happened this weekend. Theories. Anybody? How come? What's the deal? There are plenty of them, PK. Nathan, you need to ask Mr. Santiago. As soon as you put a Mr. in front of it, is that just like sarcasm right away?
Or it could be the ultimate respect, Mr. James.
See? And then I laugh. Doesn't really feel like the ultimate respect. Theoretically, it could be. But is it?
I can't change the way you feel.
David, what are you talking about? The biggest budget is football. What a dumb question. I love football, but that doesn't change how much is spent per capita compared to other programs the university runs. And I'm not talking sports.
Well, we are. Well, no, we don't talk. We're not talking sports anymore either. My bad.
Jonathan says
we used to do that.
It was a simple question.
Then I got fired. I got fired twice.
He didn't ask why it wasn't given the most money, just simply why it wasn't given more money.
Not once, but twice. Man, it's tough. Tough business out there. Yeah, It is the most money, but is it enough? No, you heard some stuff already regarding basketball.
I did hear some stuff. There are people down there who believe they aren't getting the most money.
Down there.
And there are other people who believe not all the promises have been followed on from the discussions back in December when the Penn State option was on the table for Kalani, and promises were made.
Followed through, yeah.
So, where's the follow-through on that? To what degree has that been the specifics? I think in the short run, it's more specifics, and in the long run, it's more a general, hey, we're going to compete. You don't really, to suddenly be budgeting 2, 3, 5, 7 years out. And at some point, you just have to say, we're going to do this, and we're going to keep growing.
Well, who's getting more NIL money from the school?
There are people who believe basketball is, despite the fact that they have fewer players. Which I got to say, I was hearing that. I wasn't a little surprised. I was a lot surprised. There's just so many more players. I mean, football's got, I don't know what it is, 6 times more players or 7 times more players. There's so many more players.
Although they have fewer staff members, there's 47 basketball. They're leaving a lot of revenue on the table because they have to seat them all in the Marriott Center during games.
When you start talking numbers, everyone's going to throw out the numbers to make their case the best, and they can mix and match pretty quickly and pretty fast. It's hard to know.
So you're doing that with stats, huh?
Oh, yeah. That's the stats comparison.
About time you came around.
Ken says it's simple. The athletic director is the basketball guy. 4 laughing, crying emojis.
Hoop-de-doo. Yeah. And he played a large role in hiring Kevin Young. A significant role. He walked out with him. We were all 3 at the Marriott Center. It was like a Morgan Wallen concert, man. Walking out with Kevin Young and Brian Santiago onto the stage at the Marriott Center. They made a huge production of that puppy. And so
they had backdrops, they had lighting, they had all the TV cameras up, the stage.
Marie were singing, I think. A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. Yeah.
Videos produced and everything. Yeah. It was
down by the lazy Provo River.
It was a show.
Come on, sing the boom, boom, boom.
I love it when the 7 a.m. viewers get a glimpse of 9 a.m. PK.
Viewers. I don't do TV anymore.
Right there. Viewers. Those cameras. Right there. Okay. Listeners, too.
I'm old school sports radio. I will never make the transition.
It's been made for you. You come in and hang the technology on the wall. You sit in the same chair and do the same stuff. But now there's video.
Irregardless. My passion is for the people in the automobiles proceeding northbound.
Proceeding northbound. Back to your day as a cops recorder in San Pedro. Maybe Casa Grande, too. I don't know. You do cop stuff in Casa Grande? Probably
do everything.
Had to do everything in Casa Grande. I'm the sports columnist. That's good.
You literally did everything.
Go call the sheriff.
My very first day at the Casa Grande Dispatch, they sent me over to the police department to get the crime activity for weekend.
He's like, can you help me? I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I wrote everything down and then inputted in the computer except one thing, and I was so embarrassed.
And that was?
The date.
Oops.
So everything was over the weekend. They had to pivot. But, like most mistakes, it's the last time I did that.
See? Mistakes aren't what'll get you. It's the repeated mistakes that'll get you.
You need it at 8:50 p.m. Saturday, August 14th, whatever. Right. And I neglected that.
Date and time stuff.
I had all the stuff that they did, and it was a bunch of petty stuff there in Casa Grande at the time. And so, my first time, and the city editor who became a big-time columnist for the Cincinnati Enquirer, what's the dates on this?
Oh. Way to go, kid.
Crap. I didn't get them, but I never made that mistake again.
Nathan says you need to ask Mr. Santiago, but Josh responded to him. It goes above Santiago.
It really does, yeah.
Cam says, I'm not a huge Santiago guy, but let's not pretend this hasn't been the case for decades. Kalani even said it was the same issue with the last 3 head coaches.
Yeah, I mean, it does go.
Which is, that's back to Lavelle. That's back to the early 70s.
They've got a power structure and a line of command, and they're big on the lines of command, and you have to follow them and blah, 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 all that stuff. And that's what it was, and that's what it is, and probably what it'll continue to be. And then they put somebody in between who may or may not have a clue about sports, but Yahoo, man, he wants to be in on sports. And then his opinion counts even if it shouldn't. I'm not saying this one here does or doesn't, and it shouldn't, but I'm just saying
this is something we've heard from multiple athletic directors over multiple decades, and they've been referencing multiple people.
Right, and that's what they choose to do. So most schools don't. Most athletic directors report directly to the president. There's no go-between. In the case of Tommy Lloyd as a basketball coach, he doesn't even report to the athletic director. He reports directly to the president. Down at the U of A, you got that going on there. Yeah, I mean, reputable. I'm very confident in saying the source thing, if you want it, that Brian was okay with Kalani leaving. He was, and others got in there and changed it, and he ended up staying. That's where I think part of the problem is. Kalani has leverage, but I'm not sure he's willing to really, really use it. And I think they know that. He does not want to leave. Kevin Young can dally with NBA teams all he wants. He's not a BYU guy. He's not. Steve Cleveland was not a BYU guy. And Fresno State threw way more at him. He left. Bronco was not a BYU guy. And Virginia threw way more at him, and he left.
And it's different if that's your alma mater and you've been on campus for decades.
Or you're from the community.
And you're from the community, and you've got family, extended family, friends who are all around the program. Yeah. And we've seen that with multiple people.
Yeah.
I mean, Juddy was so embedded here, he never wanted to leave the community. There were people for his career who said, you should, and he didn't want to, and he didn't want to move his kids out of school, and he's got siblings and didn't live far from his mom when she was alive, and he stayed. And so he was just Utah, BYU, men's basketball, women's basketball. He did not want to go.
And if she was buried at that cemetery over by Olympus High, he didn't live far from her when she was gone, too.
That would be true, too.
Yeah. So you got that going on, and I don't think he really wants to leave. And he can talk about it, and as he should. But I think they know that, and I think deep down that he has the leverage with the Penn State offer, but was he really going to take it? Now, you listen to the assistant coaches, and some of them say, yeah, my thought was I'd be leaving. I would be going with him. I mean, that's been told to me. But, in the end, it didn't happen. And Kevin, who knows how long he's going to be here. And Brian is a basketball guy. He's got to shake that. He was over basketball. The coaches there reported to him. That's a fact. And you can say, as we talked about, he pushed Judd out and said it was retirement. They didn't think he had the energy to go into the Big 12. And they hired somebody who, by their own account, failed. Not by my account. I don't care.
They made another change. Yeah.
So that didn't work. That was not a good move. Clearly, was she there 2 years, 3 years? And they made the change. And we'll never know what Jeff could have done into the Big 12. He wasn't given the opportunity. So you got that going on there. And his personality is he's tried. But I think that the problem here, if it is a problem, but it's more of a, I'll say, situation, is that, he's worked hard, I can tell you. He's worked hard to be a leader that leads by example and is...
we're talking about Santiago here?
Yeah, and is that people want to follow and is not as viewed as abrasive as he was. But the problem or situation is so many of those folks are still there when it was before.
And so they're remembering interactions with him from 3 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever. I mean, he's been there. He's been there probably 20, right?
20?
Or was it even longer?
On the campus or in the department?
In the administration.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he came with Cleveland, so he's been there 30 years.
Right.
But I'm just thinking a lot of people in the sports didn't interact with him in those first few years.
Probably
he didn't have that kind of role.
No, it was basically administrative assistant.
Right. But by the time Cleveland leaves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. I mean, I woke up this morning to a scathing email about him from a former employee. Yeah.
I'm not surprised. You've heard stuff like that before. I've heard stuff like that before. Jake Hatch has heard stuff like that before.
And I thought that the email was coming. I thought it was coming last night, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You expected to hear from that person?
Yes. And then I go to bed around 10 o'clock. A lot of people stay up later than that. But I try to be, unless the Jazz are playing or something, or the hockey or whatever, I try to be in the sack by 10. And sure enough, when I woke up this morning, see what's going on.
There's the email.
Yeah, and it was scathing. There's no other way around it. I mean, I don't take any pleasure but saying it, but I'm just trying to report. But I'm also trying to report it as balanced as possible because it's so easy to dump on Brian Santiago. Very, very easy to do. You know, he wasn't universally beloved and isn't universally beloved, so let's just dump on him.
So is there someone, because there are so many people in the chain of command, is there someone who can get in the room and says, okay, put all the feelings over there, put all that. The program was promised money, and what time frame, what were they promised it? How much were they promised? What were they promised for? Are they getting it? If not, how quickly can they get it? Because that's what's going to help the program win. I mean, that's the bottom line.
I mean, it's not the sole thing, but
exclusive
answer.
You've got to have the NIL money to compete with Texas Tech, and you've got to have the money to retain coaches and all that.
Yeah.
And they did a pretty good job of retaining people and coaches now.
That's two different things.
Yes.
The coaching staff loves working for Kalani Sitake.
We have heard that over and over.
Yes. Coaches had multiple opportunities to leave, and they did not. 2 left to go to Michigan. Well, others had high-profile offers, position coaches, and they chose to stay. Jay Hill wasn't the only coordinator who could have left. We'll leave it at that. And they chose to stay. So that's 2 different things there. This is about, I think when he speaks for the resources, Kalani, it's about that for the program and what they need. And they openly would tell you, if you have relationships with them, and I said this last year, that their NIL budget was equal to Texas Tech's defensive line. And now you got other guys, other programs that are raising. Dillingham talks about this all the time. It's not about catching up because you can't catch up. If your mindset is to catch up, you will be behind all the time because the bag keeps moving. Right. You got Kyle talks about this weekly practically. These budgets are going up 20, 30, 40% yearly.
So by the time you get to where Texas Tech is already to a new spot.
And it's not about Texas Tech anymore.
Because it's about everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's going that. And you're not recruiting. Every time you're recruiting a kid, you're not competing with Texas Tech. You're competing with fill-in-the-blank school.
I think it's understood that no one's catching Texas Tech. It's what I spoke about 18 months ago when guys were telling me this, and my fear was Texas Tech was just going to dominate because of the money. And when the second after they lost officially against Oregon, what's his face there? Cody says we're going to double down. On the field, they're not even in the locker room yet. So you have to basically put them aside. Now you have to compete with the other 14 schools.
So they're, as much as we're looking at this season, they're obviously already recruiting high school kids they're going to sign in December. So they're already worried about the money for next year. And do they have it, even though they retain people, and that's a positive, and they retain players and all that, do they have the money they need for the kids they're recruiting right now who are going to sign in 27 and be freshmen?
Yeah, I think it's for 28 and 29, actually, by now. Those kids already made their commitments.
So talking to the junior class next. They keep coming.
Yeah, it never stops. Majerus used to have that line. It's like shaving. If you don't do it every day, you look scraggly. And it's literally an everyday deal. So, yeah. Recruiting literally never stops. So I've been golfing with coaches, and, I got to take this call because it's a recruit. Or recruits handlers.
Yeah.
And now they have handlers. Now they have agents. So it's gotten harder, not easier.
We would go down there and broadcast. And it surprised me. And then when I saw it, it's like, well, this is what we were told. You just never really seen it. And when they were an independent, we'd go down and they'd have their own media day, and we'd be upstairs in a room, so there's a little less background noise, and they would bring people up. And multiple people were doing it. At one point, they brought 2 coaches at the same time. And A-Rod said, oh, don't worry about it. Just do your thing. I'll do the next segment. Don't bring someone for the next one. And then he sat on the sofa, never said another word, and he got on his phone, and he texted nonstop for the commercial break, the next segment, and the next thing. And when he came over to talk to us, I'm like, you had plenty of work, and it was the whole recruiting never stops.
Right.
Recruiting, he just sat down and was returning texts to high school coaches or parents or players or whoever, whatever was going on.
And I think from the BYU perspective, they may think, hey, we have dumped more money in this program than we ever have, which they have. But at the same time, everybody else is doing it. So it goes back to what I said.
Fatigue.
You put your name on a building, and it's primo for at least 10, 15 years, and you see it every day. Well, last year's donations don't mean squat this year. And then you have to re-recruit the same guys. That's why recruiting is far more difficult, because you have to recruit high schoolers, JC to an extent, transfers. But most importantly, you have to recruit your own guys. The Sun Devils lost their quarterback and 1,000-yard rusher because somebody else recruited them off you. And they know, wow, the fact is the Sun Devil program will be, to a large extent, a feeder program. Not as much as San Diego State, but still.
There's a pecking order, there's a ladder, and there's always somebody above you, and there is always somebody below you.
And so with that in mind, you have to keep doing it year after year, day after day. And when does it end? It just seems like there's got to be some guardrails that are put into place, but right now there aren't. And so you have to go about doing what you do. And you want to compete, and they want to compete for the highest levels. And good for them. Can they do it? I have my serious doubts.
One thing that and it was, so many words, so many conversations. But one thing I have heard thrown out there is that there are people who think that as much as the BYU fan base loves football and has all these memories of decades of football, that what you just said, hey, they moved up where they're, the last couple of years, they're 15. They're in a Power 4 league, and there's nobody who's really complaining they're overrated. They're just a couple spots outside the playoffs. But even though on a list it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots, right, that those are significant jumps. And it is hard. It's one thing to go from 40 to 30, from 30 to 20, from 20 to 15, and now the jumps start getting bigger to get into the top 10, to be in the 8 in a quarterfinal, to be in a semi. And it's easier to do it in basketball. We've seen a wider range of schools do it in hoops. Now under old rules, it may be getting harder. So are there people who would rather push the money into hoops?
Do we see that that's a possibility remotely? I mean, they had the great season, and he got snuffed in the 16. And then, injuries curtailed last year's team, which it did. But say everybody was healthy. Was that team a Final Four team? They had no friggin' bench.
That was Sweet 16 at best, and they could have easily gone out in the first or second game.
With the number 1 pick.
Right.
And all that. And I hope they can do it. But it's going to be extremely difficult.
I think the thing that encourages basketball people, and they may be up in the night, But they've seen the VCUs and the George Masons and the Gonzagas and the San Diego States. But San Diego State has been different since they went to the title game 3 years ago, and that's as NIL wraps up, and they haven't been getting back close to that.
As NIL begins. Yeah. So
even though you saw it then, are you going to see it now?
No.
Are we going to go right back to power schools, big budgets, loads of money?
Yeah, because those teams, Alabama made a nice run. And then they have a center from Northern Colorado, the big white kid. Yeah, so they take off. So I don't know that it's going to happen. All these programs are basically UVU. And UVU embraces what they are, as they should. Yep. Todd Phillips is I don't want to say a genius, but he's so shrewd in doing it. Here's what we can offer you, and we can give you starter salary. You can give you entry-level money, and then you blow up here. We play a pretty good level of basketball, and then you go on, and that's just the standard. I mean, their best guys are one-year rentals, and he acknowledges it and makes the best of it. And actually, he does a phenomenal job making the best of it. So they not to not have those aspirations. You should have those aspirations, but it's going to be very difficult. And because I just don't see BYU constantly flooding money into the sports programs, because that's what they're going to have to do in the Big Two. And is that something they want to do? They tell you they don't want to get in the arms race, but then they kind of go in a little bit and then put a toe in, then put a foot in. Well, then you got to put your whole body in, because all these other ones are doing it. And, Dillingham talks about it all the time, and they got somebody to donate $10 million. And then I see a picture of him on social media standing right there in practice. He gets to be somebody.
Access, baby.
Yeah.
Access to the spotlight.
Right. And here at Utah, I've seen a booster pull up on the back in his high-priced car, get up, walk right into the team huddle. Literally. The group huddle, not the offensive huddle. But at the end, standing on the practice field, and when the coaches speak, he's standing right there. And that's what they get, and that's what they want. They want that access. I was told with Ryan Smith when he wanted to buy into the Suns. He said, well, what do I get? And Sarver said, great seats.
Oh, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Well, some of the other stuff.
Right.
I want to be in the draft room.
Right. Yeah. And
that's the first thing I'd be going to.
Are they prepared to do all that? Is BYU prepared to do all that?
And if so, for how long? Going to play the long game.
Well, you can't just do 1 or 2 years, then you're not prepared to do it. Either you're in or you're out. And that's by being in, it's not, if you're temporarily in, you're not in. And I don't think they're alone in this. I think that's the problem and the issue facing everybody.
Everybody. And when I first heard UC Santa Barbara, my alma mater, was leaving the Big West to go to the West Coast Conference, I thought, why? You're down there, you're playing UCs and Cal States, and you're just bussing back and forth. And now you're going to need more money. You're going to have to get on airplanes. And then a friend of mine who's a media guy, super interesting career, wrote a great piece. And it came down to they'd gotten the Gauchos had their budget up over $30 million, as UC San Diego and UC Irvine had. And they were looking at some of the Cal States that weren't to $20 million yet. And so they wanted to go off and be in a new league that was more aggressive, play games out of state, and they thought that would help them attract students from out of state. So they went to the West Coast Conference. They didn't want just in-state students. They wanted to. So it's at a much lower level, but they're trying to grow their rep. There's people outside the athletic department on campus who are getting involved, saying, hey, you can do this for the entire school. And they often did something that on the face of it, I thought, what the heck are you doing that for? Now, we'll see if it works.
Is that this year or next year?
I think they got to play one more year in the Big West before they go. I think they can take off next June. I could be wrong on that. I have to look that up.
Well, I hope UVU punks the crap out of them.
I did think they're going to be coming to Orem, and then they're like, nope, no, they're not. No, they're not. But I wonder why the Big West was letting UVU in, and it's because they knew. And Irvine isn't taking off right away, but we'll see if they do in a couple years.
The Anteaters?
It's a little bit like UNLV. They could have gone, but they stayed behind. But then you wonder, well, how long are you going to stay there? You'll win, but how long will you stay there before you take off too? All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It just goes to your point. It's happening everywhere at every level, right? There's ACC teams thinking about the Big Ten. There's a Big 12. You got teams in the American thinking, Memphis is like, they offered to buy their way into the Big 12 a few years ago. So it doesn't matter what level you go to. UVU's moving. UC Santa Barbara's moving. Weber State's staying put. There's a school that seems to be happy with where they are, and they're parked in their league. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Coming up, more on this with Mitch Harper at 8:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeCoe.
From top to bottom, this is the most talented team the Kalani Sitake's ever had at BYU. And that includes his first year when he had Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams. This is as good of a complete team. Now, I know there's some question marks at wide receiver. Totally get that. But I also look at it from the depth. They've got it. The quality, the high-end players, they've got it. I just think this team is absolutely loaded, and we're going to see it on display.
And the questions will get answered quickly. The receivers that you choose have to go out on the field, and they have to run their routes and catch balls, and they catch balls and make plays. You'll start to get to know them better. They'll become more than just a name on a page. And then on Utah's side, nationally, both teams ranked in the top 25. BYU considered a contender, and Utah a dark horse. You guys are in the conversation. Now it's just go do it.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Scotty G and the coach today at the ballpark at America First Square during Mountain Land Supply's Customer Appreciation Day. They'll have swag, knowledgeable vendors, food, raffles, batting practice on the field, bring a glove, and a mini golf tournament. You don't want to miss it. We will see you there. Ballpark at America First Square today, 10 to 2. PK, the Deseret News with the story, Utah State, most difficult schedule ever. We were just talking about teams moving up and teams changing leagues, and it doesn't matter, or meeting new challenges in the leagues they're in. Utah State's saying goodbye to some teams they've really come to dominate, winning 7 out of 9 or 8 out of 9 against New Mexico and Hawaii. I think it's 11 out of 12 against San Jose State. Well, say goodbye to 3 conference W's you could lock in every time they were on your schedule. And say hello now to Washington State, Oregon State, Texas State, and the top of the league. It was always a battle playing Boise State and San Diego and Fresno, and they're coming with you. So you buying that? Toughest schedule ever?
Well, I don't know what they scheduled in the 60s, so I have no idea. I can't speak to that. I was not paying attention to Utah State in the 60s and 70s and 80s, so I don't know. But if you want to make it, since I've been here, but I'd have to go through the independent schedule because those are tough to figure out. So I don't know, but I don't need the word ever in there to discuss their schedule. And if you argue that it's tougher than it has been in recent years, fine. Yeah, okay, well. There you go. But they're not the only ones, because if they've been beating up on them, so has San Diego State and
Fresno State and Boise State and on down the line.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they're all feasting on these teams.
A bit of a wash and a push.
So everybody's got to up their game.
Yeah. Right. Which is, from a fan perspective, great. I want to see good football. I want to see exciting plays and not a bunch of blowouts. I want to see Utah State win, obviously, and it's going to be harder, but okay. And that just means it's going to mean more when you get the job done, and you're going to attract a better level of talent too. You would hope to be able to come in, and that's what I'm looking for from this program. To see where Bronco Mendenhall can take this program. Because if you take the program to the top of this conference, that's saying something. Because this is not chopped liver by any stretch. And you're right, there always were pretty much multiple guarantees on the schedule. And now they're going to not do as many of the buyouts, so there's not going to be multiple guaranteed losses. And not any guaranteed wins.
I think Bronco only got a partial win there. This is something that'll take a little time.
Right.
Last year he was talking about, hey, let's play in the West. Let's not fly cross country. So don't have SEC games where they're going going to this side of the country. But they are going to Washington and Utah, and they can certainly lose both those games and get beat up pretty good in the process. It does seem, looking at their schedule, they ought to be 2-2 in September. They ought to be 2-2 when they go into conference, which starts October 3rd at Boise State. That's it. Idaho State and Troy at home. They should win. At Utah and at Washington, you'd expect them to lose. So we'll see what happens, but odds are 2-2. Pretty good odds on that. So I guess if you're going to toughest schedule ever, hey, it's tougher when you're flying off to play cross country.
Yeah, I don't care about that's just some sports radio talking point ever. What difference does it make? Is if it's the second toughest? That stuff doesn't really work for me. So I'm interested to see what level Bronco can do in terms of improving the program. That's what matters. What has he been able to do from year 1 to year 2 and then on subsequent years? His track record is pretty good of doing that. Can he do it again here? And obviously he's going to have to in order to be successful. They had an okay first season considering where they were the year before. It's the same thing as he had BYU. It's literally the same thing. The names have changed, but the principle and the point is the same. You take a program, BYU's we can argue was worse. Utah State the year before. And they've had all sorts of upheaval in the athletic department. Can they settle that down and get some level of consistency going here? And Bronco is about as consistent as they could possibly come. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, they're going to have to. You're going to have to ball up, basically. Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'm really curious to see where this program could go because the opportunity is here to take it to places that it hasn't been and really have some decent level of stability and knowing, hey, Utah State, that's a quality program year in, year out, and I'm expecting them to compete. Top third type thing. Can they get to that level? They're not there yet, I don't think. In my mind, they're not. Can they get to that level? That remains to be seen.
At Washington, at Utah, at Boise State, and then they've got this 12th game to be determined, which, like right now, Boise State's penciled in. We'll see if that holds up. 6-6, it could be some heavy lifting to get bowl eligible this year. A new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, just plenty of changes up there in Logan. We'll talk to Bronco as the season progresses. Right now, we're going to take a break. Coming up, 8 o'clock hour to 8:30, we're talking with Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports. Tim Brando, Fox Sports, college football and basketball broadcaster at 9 o'clock. Stay with us right here on The Zone. The KSL Sports Zone and Beehive Meals are honoring people that impact youth sports in our communities. Nominate the youth sports volunteer for the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to Jake and Ben for the winner. It's the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week. PK, you put the question up at Facebook. Coach Joey McGuire says Texas Tech is embracing the self-appointed role here, the most hated team in America. He dropped that quote. Why do these guys think so highly of themselves?
They really do, don't they?
They do. You're not the most hated team in America. Come on, man.
They think they are. They think the world is against Texas Tech.
Well, we've won a lot and we're really good and they hate us. No. You tried to play a player that everybody knew should be suspended for 1 year. Everybody knew it. You suspended for a year. Everybody moves on. You don't hear all of this stuff. You got yelled at a lot because you made a huge mistake. You want a team that's routinely hated year in and year out, go talk to Notre Dame. Go talk to the University of Miami. Go talk to Alabama. Go talk to Ohio State. Go talk to USC. I can put 5 teams in front of you in a heartbeat. And I probably left some out. I bet I can find a bunch of people who loathe Michigan. Oklahoma. I should have said Oklahoma. Oklahoma should go on the list.
I love
Texas.
Michigan.
You love, continued loves Michigan, though.
I've loved Michigan since I was born.
Okay. Yeah, loop that around. Bring that full circle.
My mother-in-law lived there. Not that she had any clue about sports.
Samuel says Alabama and Notre Dame have entered the chat. Samuel, I agree. Plenty of people don't like Bama. Get you a long list.
Okay, but if Texas Tech accomplishes what they anticipate and want to have happen, won't that accelerate the hatred? Because they were bought by money.
If you win a lot, jealousy will grow. If you obviously win because one person stepped in with a big checkbook, then you can double down on that jealousy. It can grow much more quickly.
Well, that's how they'll
We've seen
win.
it in other programs. Yes. The parallels with this in Oregon are pretty clear. One person steps in with a checkbook, and you are suddenly elevated multiple levels in the universe.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech has multiples.
And I don't
Cody's
think they were
partner is right there.
Yeah, and they weren't as far down for as long as Oregon was. So it's not a perfect match, but nonetheless,
they were nothing.
Elevated several levels.
They were nothing on a national scale.
That's true. That's what they have in common. But they were capable of winning
and
5, 6, 7 games.
We had the one guy here. We had him on his sideline guy a while back, and he's saying, "Well,
Chris Level,
the Sellers is the other guy, Cody, his buddy, right? They went into the same businesses, blah blah blah, and so his wife, Sellers' wife, played softball at Texas Tech." And look at him now, right?
Texas Tech, College Softball World Series, Final Series.
Yeah, and the joke is they need somebody who is connected to baseball because they have a run-of-the-mill baseball program. And they should have a better baseball program. But they don't because somebody's wife or somebody's brother didn't play on the team.
The passion is for football and for softball.
Well, basketball because it's a higher profile.
Right.
And so, yeah.
But every other sport on campus.
Unless you have connection to those two guys.
The money doesn't flow your way.
Right. And so it is sort of a joke in that way, that's the way they've elevated themselves, and that's going to create animosity. I think to me it's more animosity than jealousy. I have animosity toward them, but I don't really have jealousy. Because they have a booster who struck gold. You freaking oil stuff and all that. We know.
Black gold.
We know.
Texas tea.
Yeah, we know how it is, and so that good on them, but that's going to make me root for them to lose. Not that my rooting for them to lose has any effect on anything. I've long since realized that. And that's why I don't bother with much emotion. I just shrug. Okay, they're going to win, and that really, when you think about it, isn't that life? Big money equals king. It equals influence. It equals power. How is that any different? So if you step back, shouldn't we expect this? Because that's the way everything is.
Why would college football be different?
Why would college sports be different? And for a long time, it wasn't and hasn't been different. It's just that it wasn't talked about. It was tawdry and it was seedy. Well, now it's out in the open where Cody Campbell's parading himself around at media days and having on-the-field access. And I'm surprised he doesn't do a post-game press conference. Don't worry about it, Joey McGuire. I'll handle it.
He's going to be like Jerry Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry Jones in the hallway is exactly what I thought of.
And just do his own because he has that much influence. Yeah.
It's the Texas way. Jerry Jones, Mark Cuban, step right into that line.
Yeah, you get to the point where you wonder if he wanted whomever to coach, that's who would be the coach. All right. That's the system that has been created. I can't be jealous of that. And Tech will try to tell you, like the Dodgers, oh man, we've been hearing it since the School Ball deal was about a week and a half old now, and they just develop players and they got all these top prospects and great, but how many top prospects actually pan out? The reality is at AAA, if you've got 2 or 3 guys that'll be players on your team, that's great. They don't. You have a bunch of guys that are there to play games for a handful of guys because they need competition, right? But most of them, they're very good ball players compared to, Joe Blow on the street, but they're not good enough to play in the big leagues. And so with that in mind, that's the way you go. And so you create these things, and away they go. And I can't really be jealous of that.
James says they're only the third most hated team in the Big 12. That coach has given himself way too much credit.
Well, it's so the circle the wagons type of thing. Everyone's against us. They love to play that. Everybody does. Nobody believed in us. I go back to the Darryl Strawberry made a comment years ago, and the Mets won the division like by August 15th. Nobody believed in us. They doubted us. No. Actually, if you didn't win the World Series, it was a gag.
You're loaded.
But they all play that. So why shouldn't Texas Tech do that?
Vernon, well, it's good they see it that way. When you try to cheat or do something not playing by the rules, people tend not to like you. I'm mad that they are not playing with Mr. Gambler. Other defenses were ready to destroy him.
That is such a blip, though. They need to embrace that, which I think they are. It's like, the Dodger thing that I was saying. The Dodgers have missed on so many guys that they've paid big money to, but they got big money and they can just recover. Where the rest of them, the Milwaukee Brewers, if they paid Edwin Diaz all this money that the Dodgers didn't, he's been hurt, and then he blew 2 leads the other day against the Diamondbacks. Well, then they just get somebody else. And you see, the point that I was trying to make is that, well, Milwaukee can pay that guy because Scooball saying everybody could have paid it, anybody could have had me. No, that's not true. Because you have to have the money to absorb all these other things. Because if all the Glasgow that they paid, the Snell that they paid, and Ohtani that they paid, if those guys were humming, they wouldn't have gotten Scooball. They wouldn't have needed him.
They're bringing Snell back for the first time since May 9th today.
Yeah, and he's been injured. He's pitched like 55 innings. Yeah. And they've paid him major money. The rest of the teams would be crippled if that were the case. So they need to embrace it and just say, yeah. Instead of, oh, man, we coach him up. Oh. Yeah, I can't say what I want to say. Yeah.
They brought in too many MDs.
You coach up David Bailey. Wow. I could coach up David Bailey.
He was
the number 2 or 3 pick, wasn't he?
Hey, David, go get the quarterback. Okay, coach.
Yeah. You coach him up.
Playing the whole game in the other team's backfield.
You brought him up. But that, to a large degree, that's the way it's been. It just was under the table, as they say. Now it's not. And they're going to benefit from it.
We used to go in through the back door. Now we go in through the front door. What a great quote from Orgeron, who's an SEC lifer, plus he's at USC.
And if there was somebody down in the Valley of the Sun who had that, I'd kick back and say, sucks for you. That's the reality of the world. You've got problems. You play the victim. Sucks for you. Because everybody just goes on. Life goes on every day.
Everybody's on their own path with their own problems, and they're absorbed with those largely.
Yeah, and we've got all these people in the political world. They all want to play the victim. Okay, be the victim. Sucks for you. That's the way most people look at it. Or they sit up on their high horse. Yeah, we need change, and they don't do a darn thing except for saying, we need change. Let's put a slogan in the end zone. That'll do it. Yeah, it's all cosmetic. So more power to Texas Tech. But at the same time, I hope they lose.
Houston, Game 3, conference opener. Take an L there. Make the conference race very interesting.
Yeah. I wonder, can Texas Tech really do what they want to do? Can they be Indiana? Because Indiana gives everybody hope. Because they took down all the big dogs. Whether they're a big dog today, whether they've been a big dog for history, whether they were a big dog and then slipped and now are a big dog again. I'm looking at you, Miami. They've taken them all down. So that's been fun. You can argue, well, the NIL has created more equity. More teams can participate because they can go right to Indiana and Tech. Tech at least got in.
What do you make of TCU going to the title game? Was that done old school or was that done new school?
I think it was
old school.
Yeah.
Because I think for Tech, looking right up the road there to TCU a couple hours away and seeing them do that, it's like, when is it our turn?
I think that the world has changed dramatically.
Very quickly.
And, so anything that happened before
4 or 5 years ago
2023 doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter.
And that's TCU to the football title game. That's San Diego State to the basketball title game. The world has changed so quickly.
Right.
And you can just point it, because they lost to Georgia when the SEC was still king, and now you look at the last 3 years, and the SEC's gone 2-8 against the other power leagues in the playoffs, and the Big Ten's won 3 in a row. It really was a lifetime ago.
And I can't even remember who told me, but when the NIL was about to come, somebody said to me that this is going to be interesting for the SEC because that part of the country isn't a big money part of the country. And so the prediction, and I don't even remember who said it. I probably wouldn't tell you anyway. I'd tell you, but I wouldn't say it on the air. And because it was an active coach. I think I know, but I'm not sure. And it was
I think I know too, but I know I'm not supposed to blurt it out right now.
And so here's the deal. And it's come to pass.
Well, it has come to pass. And the thing is, you told me about that quote, and then I saw other people writing it. That was a sentiment. They were all aware. Everybody who works in that, they knew. Where are the most people? Where is the most money? Where are the most corporate headquarters? And they all know that stuff.
So in a sense, isn't that good for the game? Has it leveled it out?
Or has it just changed the villain? We're not sick of the Big Ten yet, but we're about to be. I don't know if we were sick of the SEC after they won 3 titles, but we were sick of them after they won 13.
I don't think anybody was sick about Indiana doing it.
Right.
And they're in the Big Ten.
But if they keep winning, we'll get sick of them. And in the meantime, if Oregon and USC join Michigan and Ohio State...
If Indiana wins the next 5... people will love it because that means Ohio State didn't. That means Michigan didn't. That means Oregon didn't. And then down in the SEC. And Lane Kiffin won't.
So Lane. See, that's the thing. I don't know if LSU goes on the list of public enemy number 1, but Lane Kiffin does.
Well,
as long as Lane's at LSU.
Yes, they're connected.
Right. But I just don't think LSU's won enough. I mean, they've won some. Yeah,
but he's Lane Kiffin.
Yep.
And he has been a lightning rod. And he revels in that. And then he was the coach who left, and we're going to dump on him, and somehow LSU escapes. You couldn't have waited 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
Not the first time.
It had to be right then and there?
Not the first time that his departure for another job has put him front and center.
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Well, he professed his love to Tennessee, and then he got the USC gig.
I'm out.
I mean, just when I thought he loved Tennessee, shouldn't have taken him to Abilene. I'm drinking Jack all by myself.
Hey, West Texas, this all comes full circle here.
It do. That it do.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're taking a break. When we come back, Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports. Everything that happened over the weekend. What does it mean? What does he think about the funding of the football and basketball programs? We'll get to all of that next. Stay with us.
Welcome to This is Jay Scott and Ben Anderson.
I mean, honestly, this is uncharted territory for Utah. Other than Witt like to change his offensive coordinator every 45 minutes, we have not seen a switch at head coach for Utah, hardly ever. I mean, they are the Pittsburgh Steelers of college football. Kind of had a couple of coaches, and they've all stepped in and been very successful.
I think Morgan probably will try and find the sweet spot in being a little bit more aggressive. If he tries to go full Mike Leach on it, Utah's going to learn some painful lessons. But
there's more room for error than Witt thought.
There is, and I think
in a good way.
And we saw that in the bowl game. Mm-hmm. Deep down, Witt is a soccer coach, and I don't think that Morgan is a soccer coach. And when I say that, I mean like, oh, you've got a 1-goal-to-none lead. Well, let's sit on that thing. Yep. Let's anchor it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Love that strategy.
Catch Jake and Ben afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. PK, it was a big topic this weekend. I think it's still a big topic today, and that's why we're having Mitch Harper on here. But don't you feel a little bit like this BYU topic is always going to be a topic? There's always going to be a coach who wants more money. There's always going to be a coach who needs more money, because what we were just talking about in the last segment, the pressure to get it, and other sports fighting for it.
Yeah, but I think it runs deeper than that.
And it does run deeper than that because there's a layer of how much personal trust or animosity is there. Disconnect.
Did you ever talk about years after the fact a manager who kicked your chair?
Maybe. He didn't kick my chair. He pulled his leg back to kick my chair, and then he thought better of it. And he wasn't going to kick my chair. He was going to kick me.
Oh, yeah, see?
Yeah.
And it'll always be that Brian was willing to let Kalani go. And that'll always be out there.
That won't be forgotten.
Now, you could argue it wasn't just that, man. He wanted him to go. It depends on how far you want to take it.
Mm-hmm. DJ, PK, and we're joined now by Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports. Mitch, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Happy to be on.
Mitch, did you think you were just going to have a nice weekend, a summer, one of the last ones, and all of a sudden, wow, look at that.
Crazy. And I just think that the whole, situation was just bizarre. And, just hearing PK's comments coming in, I mean, the letting Kalani go to Penn State, and you point back to that as maybe a starting point potentially in all of this. But to think that BYU goes to a message board to issue a comment, they've had so many things that they could dispel rumors. I mean, Cougar Board has been a hotbed for rumors for many years, for a quarter century. I mean, a couple months ago, they could have said when Parker Kingston showing up to the indoor practice facility, hey, he's not a member of the university. Get ready for the football season. Go Cougars. They didn't do that. It was only this. And this was the first time that they have an AD that maybe doesn't have a, more than, universal, approval rate from the fans. And I think that's new territory that this athletic department is not used to for the most part. So it was surreal. And now BYU moves forward.
Yeah. We discussed that obviously on the show, that I had never seen anything like that. And I don't know the level of truth. I got people telling me, well, the guy was ordered to do it and all that stuff. But it was unprecedented and kind of crazy. But it's an evolving world of the online internet rumors and all that stuff that we now have to deal with. I mean, you're right. It's been going on. I've told the story when Croton was fired. Somebody apparently went on there and said I wasn't at the press conference because I was suspended when I was bedside after my father was fighting for his life following a major heart attack, and they came up with I was suspended. And I mean, I'm a nobody compared to this, but if they would go to that level, then obviously they would reach to this level. As far as the funding and all that, can this thing be smoothed out? Because I wonder if it can, because BYU now, they've increased their amounts of money that they've put into the program, but at the same time, it's not a one-shot deal. It has to be repeated freaking every year, and I just wonder if they're in for that.
I believe that they are, because and I think they are from the standpoint of they've got to have that direct line of communication to the brethren and the church. I think that's critical in all of this, because sometimes you think back to those years when we'd have roundtables with Tom Holmoe, and he'd note that, we don't talk to Salt Lake often. Well, I think in this area, you got to talk to them often, all the time. And I know that's probably on the priority scale, it's probably low. I mean, they're looking at the world and their members and everything else, but it's a big business, and they've got different for-profit divisions within the church. And, BYU is not a not-for-profit, but it's big business. And there's a lot of money and exposure to be had with BYU football in particular. And you just think about how well BYU has performed with this coaching staff. Coaches want to play for Kalani Sitake, how they've been knocking on the door of the playoff. You go throw $40 million at a roster. Yeah, that sounds insane to think BYU doing that once upon a time, having a head coach like Lavelle who would just say every year, let's just do a contract and basically coach for peanuts. But if you do that, I mean, I think this coaching staff's equipped to get you to a playoff, and probably the return on investment is just tenfold and then some. I mean, so the money back. And I just think also, too, BYU has made it clear they want to play at the highest levels of college sports. And you can't help but think that there's going to be a shift at some point. I think this Big 12 situation is great for BYU. They love the Big 12. But I think we'd all be naive to think that this is just going to stay status quo forever. You got to always be investing at the highest level because you never know when this thing's going to shift, and you want to be having a seat at that table, whatever that looks like, the final form of college football. And so I just think it's the direct line to Salt Lake, I think, is important more than ever when it comes to BYU's athletic department.
So do you think the current discussion about resources to BYU, not getting what they need, not getting what was promised last December, whether that's not getting the total amount or not getting it in a timely fashion, whether it was specific things that were promised in December or the more general attitude, wherever this goes in the future, we're going to keep up, but this is what we're going to do right now. Do you think that's going to get worked out, or is this going to continue to bubble? Is it going to be kept at a simmer, best case scenario?
I would say that it has to be figured out because we've seen, it was knocking on the door where Kalani's got 1 foot out. I mean, probably even more than 1 foot out. It was almost a done deal. And I really think the timing of that Big 12 championship game was probably a big reason why it all worked out, because had there been no game that week and having practices and public facing scrutiny, maybe this doesn't, get that love bomb as Kalani referenced. He could have been gone already. So it was so close to the brink, and BYU, your coaching pool is so small to begin with. When you've got a coach that's the right guy and navigated some really, not ideal situations where he's handed an offensive coordinator to begin and really, I mean, the scrutiny of win or go home basically with 2019 and the extensions. I think you got to do right by him. I think he's done a really good job. He's universally beloved coaching in the Big 12 and college football. This is the right guy for BYU football, and he wants to be at BYU. So I think they've got to figure it out, because if not, it's clearly shown that he'll engage in these conversations. And I think it's a bit interesting. And Kalani's talked about this in interviews, and he talked about it quite a bit at the Big 12 media days, is that he saw all these programs, how they operate, and had a deep dive in these coaching carousel of how they do things. And there's a big gap. And he got the front row seat to how these high level programs are doing it. And I think he believes that if BYU does it to that scale, or maybe just a tick lower, they can, maybe do some big things and win at even higher level than they have the past couple of years.
How about the idea that basketball is receiving more money? That's got to stick in his craw.
Yeah, I mean, basketball, that roster was expensive last year, whatever the official number was. You just kind of go through it. I mean, on the low end, an AJ DeBonsa, about $4 or $5 million, depending on what number you believe, and 3.5 was thrown around for Rob Wright. Richie Saunders was getting north of $1 million. I mean, right there, you're talking, close to 10. Yeah. And when BYU football and BYU basketball joined the Big 12 initially, it was, probably a little north of $1 million, if that. I mean, it wasn't much back then. So basketball moved at a lightning speed because you needed to do that to get a decorated coach that had an NBA resume, and I think it was worth it. I mean, keep throwing money at basketball. It's a big program, but you got to do it at football too, at the highest scale, and especially too when you're in a conference where you've got a program in Texas Tech who is not slowing down, and they're not just turning to the portal now. They're going to the high school ranks and getting recruits in this 2027 class. They're going to have probably a top 5 class, or on the low end, top 10. You got to keep up with that. They're not slowing down at Texas Tech. Gambling scandals and whatnot, who cares? They're not slowing down. That machine's continuing to go, and you got to keep up with that. So, and at some point, you want to break through and win a Big 12 championship. We'll do what the flag bearer of the conference is doing right now, and invest at the highest level. And I think, again, you got a coaching staff that's proven that they can win. And I think that's something too. It's not some flash in the pan. Kalani's one with a lot of different, players and different staffs and different schedule dynamics. And they've done a pretty good job. Now they got to break through and go get a championship. But again, you got to have the roster necessary to get there. That's why I don't look at this year's team in playoff or bust category. Like, if it's not I feel pretty confident it's not a $40 million roster. I don't think we'd be having these conversations and these, where Kalani's a little salty at Big 12 Media Day and in some of his interviews. You wouldn't be seeing some of this if that was a $40 million roster, which is believed to be the high end in the sport with the Texas Techs and the Ohio States and Oregons. That's why I don't put BYU in that playoff or bust territory. If they can get to Arlington, that'd be great, but you wonder if that's their ceiling because unless they really throw even more money at this football roster.
So there are some assumptions made about wanting to keep Kalani, and I totally get the argument. I mean, it's like 4 years in, he's 27 and 25, and the pandemic hits, and it's like he had to win, right? And he needed to win big, and he found out a way with all the distractions were thrown at him in the pandemic and scheduling on the fly, have a double-digit win season, and they did. And then you send the quarterback off to the NFL, figure it out, have another double-digit win season, and he did. Go into the Big 12, it's a step up, figure out a way to have a double-digit season 2 years ago, and he did. And then you suddenly use your senior quarterback, and you got to plug in a freshman, figure out a way to have a double-digit win season, and he did again. That's a lot of success. There are a lot of people want to keep him, but we are seeing a lot of coaches who've been very successful changing at BYU. It's not football, it's not men's basketball, but they've put a lot of emphasis into women's soccer, women's volley, women's basketball. They've had success in all three of those programs, and we're seeing changes in all three of those programs. If you want to go full Machiavelli here and say, I want to change in football, I can't fire the guy who's had these 4 10-win seasons, but if he doesn't get the resources and he takes off for Penn State, and there'll be another Penn State open, whether it's USC or Oklahoma or Texas or somebody else, then I can go out and get Jay Hill if that's who I really want. Now, maybe that's too Machiavellian and that's not realistic, and yet I see a little twitch. That might have occurred to you at some point, Mitch. You've thought about this.
Machiavellian, Mitch, twice.
Yes. and look, I mean, I think this is a jarring reality that BYU's in, where they've got 2 head coaches that, are making a lot of money, that are in the upper tier of salaries in college football and college basketball. Could you save some money where you're in an era where you're looking to pay back the athletes and rev share? Could you get a coach that you believe's got a higher ceiling and pay him at a cheaper cost? Maybe that sounds like the route for some, but I think for BYU, when you find the guy that Kalani, we see it. I mean, he just lives and breathes BYU football. I mean, if there's so many situations, it would have totally made sense to me to go to Penn State. I mean, I just think that would have been the move for him. But I think he really believes that he can win at the highest level at BYU, and he wants to become the Polynesian Lavelle. I mean, I think he really wants to do that, and he's got that ability to do that. I think in some respects, what Kalani has done rivals Lavelle in some aspects, considering the strength of schedule, the conference, the changing landscape of the rules every year, and he's adapting. And through it all, he's finding this way where even a couple days ago, we see a guy like Ephraim Asiata going to Instagram and basically saying, I love this coach. And it's like, I've seen many BYU players in the past get booted or not be part of a team, and they have an axe to grind with BYU, and maybe he does, but when the football program, Kalani just finds this way, whether they transfer or they're gone, they always have positive things to say about Kalani. And in a program and a religion that is very conscious about its image, I think it's good to have a coach that, has positive feedback from everyone that kind of comes in contact with him. I think that matters a lot to BYU. Then on top of all the on-field success. So I think that, Kalani, it's an interesting time for BYU and college athletics in general. And look, they've come a long ways from where they were. I mean, 10 years ago, they didn't even have caffeine on campus, and now they're going to have a Monster logo on the field. I mean, things have evolved, and BYU has they've done a lot over time, but there's more to be done because, again, these coaches, this is their livelihood, this is their business. They want to go win at the highest levels. They're not just content, with a 10-win, 11-win season and an appearance in Arlington where you get hammered. They want to go win at the highest levels, and that entails a playoff and maybe chasing a national championship. And I think Kalani, by turning down Penn State and staying at BYU, he clearly believes he can do it, but they got to have more to get that done.
And you think that when you look at the roster, that according to you, I think you had them 11-1. So you're anticipating a Rockefellian season.
I am. And I think that, any of these off the field distractions, I don't think they're distracting the players at all. I don't get that sense around practice yesterday. I mean, honestly, I don't think many of them even knew some of the commentary that was going on at Cougar Board. But I think that, this team is pretty good. They're talented. And you look at, just some of the skill at some of the positions like cornerback and defensive line. Those have all, and I point to those positions as areas where BYU's never had elite talent. And you look at the cornerback position, and they might have a guy that, could be a top 75 pick in Evan Johnson, maybe even more. And so those are things. And then you got the depth behind them where, athleticism, the size, the kind of the measurables, they look the part. And will that be enough to, close the gap with Texas Tech or whoever emerges in the Big 12? We'll see. I mean, BYU has been very fortunate in games the past couple of years, and they've had a knack of winning. But I think the overall makeup, the twos and the threes, they are deep. They're athletic, they're talented, and it's competitive. And I think, too, that's noteworthy more than ever with this depth piece, because you're now in a 5-5 world where whether they're a true freshman or they're a young sophomore, like their clock's ticking. There's no more, hey, we're going to redshirt you. Like, let's just see some moments in camp. No, you got to perform, whether it's kickoff team, they've got to play, all of these guys. And roster spots are more valuable than ever. So, and they look pretty good from 1 to, I'd say about 95 is where you feel really, really good. I think they're really deep. The last 10 spots, obviously, you want to continue to improve those, but it's a good football team. And I think that they've got a schedule that sets up well to give them the ability to be in the national conversation throughout.
Tim Brando, Fox Sports, had him just on the outside of the playoffs looking in. What do you think the odds are it's going to look like the last couple of years?
I think that for BYU, really, it's nice that they've got the ability now with the Big 12. You win the conference, you're automatically in. And that's been kind of what's happened the past 2 years. But, there was that chance where if you had some other conference that was ranked higher, maybe the Big 12 gets left out. So, you have a direct path. And I think that's huge for BYU. They've got to go do that, because I think this is still a one-bid league. They've got to win the Big 12. I think that this is a year where it should be 2 bids from the Big 12, but I have my doubts. It just feels like there's this unspoken ceiling on Big 12 teams where at the highest they will be ranked in the preseason polls at 12. And, it may be on the next grouping where BYU's at in the coaches poll 15. Because really you lay out what BYU has done the past couple of years, 23 wins, and they got the returning quarterback, returning running back, who's the best offensive player in a Power 4 league. You say those things out loud, you say that's probably a top 10 team. But the Big 12 just hasn't shown itself well in the playoff. And I think that loss that Texas Tech had really plays a role in preseason narratives of teams. But I think BYU, I think they get to Arlington. And at that point, I'm really high on Texas Tech still, even without Sorsby. So I still kind of default to them as the Big 12 champ this season, because I think their defense hasn't gone away for Texas Tech. I mean, they've retooled the machine, and I think their evaluations have been hitting it out of the park. That's why they had 9 NFL draft picks this past April. So I still default to them, and I think BYU could be 60 minutes away from the playoff, but I don't think they get an at-large. I don't. I think that they would be 11-1, and they would be left out depending on what if they lose that Big 12 championship game.
Mitch, we'll leave it right there for now. We appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned to Cougar Board for the latest developments.
You bet, guys. Take care.
Mitch Harper, BYU Insider for KSL Sports. Follow him on social media and watch his stuff on the KSL Sports app and KSLSports.com. Tim Brando, Fox Sports college football and basketball broadcaster, joins us at the top of the hour. We'll talk with him about his prediction. The Cougars had him at 14, just on the outside looking in. Again, that'd be 3 years in a row. We'll talk with him at the top of the hour. Stay with us.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeCoux.
Joining us now, it is the head coach of the Utah State Aggies, Bronco Mendenhall.
I know you're so process-driven and there's a plan to every part of the season, but is this your favorite part?
There's an excitement that comes to the start of every season for sure. I would have to say, just in terms of full transparency, I really like the off-season. I like the molding, forming, crafting, forging the next team through the weight workouts and through the runs and through the early morning workouts and through spring practice. I think that's my favorite era. Nothing takes away from the season, or can it take the place of the season, and the excitement going into today certainly at a really high level. I think foundationally that my favorite part is the formation of the team, and now this part where you get to see kind of the fruition of the formation of your program.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. BYU's just hired a new assistant athletic director, Pete Thamel, with the report this morning. They've gone to Kentucky. Kentucky hires from BYU. BYU hires from Kentucky. What goes around comes around. Kentucky staffer Marc Hill to BYU's executive team. 27 years at Kentucky. He's been deputy AD there since 2019 and a football sport administrator since 2012, so plenty of experience there.
I think this is a Machiavellian hire.
There it is.
Word of the day, Machiavellian.
I didn't even know that was a word.
Of course
you didn't know that?
I never heard of Machiavellian. Have you ever heard me say Machiavellian?
I've never heard you use it, but I think you should know it. You went to Arizona State. You tell us about that stellar education you got
but we
there.
speak common language so people understand. No, I heard of Milli Vanilli, but not Machiavellian. And both, you're a phony just like Milli Vanilli is. I don't like this hire. Guy worked at the University of Arizona. His wife was a former athlete at the University of Arizona. That's bad seed.
Too many Wildcats in a Cougar world, huh? It's big cat energy.
I stuck up for Santiago, but not anymore.
This is it. The fridge too far.
Yes.
Fool hiring U of A guys.
He did this just to taunt me.
That was.
It was a
Dare I
Machiavellian
say it,
move.
his Machiavellian energy right there.
Oh, Machiavellian? I thought it was just Machiavellian.
It's Italian. You should be on top of this, PK, for multiple reasons.
But yet I'm at the bottom.
Clearly a blind spot in your education.
Well, 27 years he started strength and conditioning and all that stuff, and I've been at Kentucky as an administrator for a long time. I wonder what they're going to do. I wonder if he replaces Santiago in terms of Brian was Tom's assistant.
Right.
And so now he will be Santiago's old job. Or maybe not exact duties, but positionally they added a body that was subtracted when Tom retired. Right. That's what it appears to be.
That's what it looks like on the surface.
Yes, and certainly 27 years. But that's a huge move. You've been at someplace for 27 years, and then you go.
So he was reportedly one of the finalists for that job down there in Provo. He's chased jobs out here multiple times.
Yeah, I think he played baseball at UVU, so he's got a connection here. I assume he's a Latter-day Saint.
He is. He was in the stake presidency down there in Lexington. And his daughter actually played softball at BYU.
Stake presidency in Lexington, DJ.
I heard him.
Yeah.
No, there was a story that he was both Mark Pope's boss and ecclesiastical leader.
Ooh, man. And if maybe he didn't want to be the one to have to fire him next year if it doesn't work out with that $87 million roster. Get out of town now. And I hope Mark does well. I like him. But this guy looks like he's got the credentials. We'll see what they do and what difference that makes. I often wondered what difference do those people make. Is it more about the coach and the players if you want to have a winning whatever team? But they need the support, and that's what we've been talking about the last 2 days for Kalani Sitake, about the support. We'll see how this plays out.
DJ PK will take a break. When we come back, Tim Brando, Fox Sports college football and basketball broadcaster, thinks BYU is going to be really good, but on the outside looking in when push comes to shove in December. We'll talk with him next. Stay with us. DJ PK, and it's time to welcome Tim Brando back to the show, Fox Sports college football and basketball broadcaster. Tim, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
You caught our eye. You put out a list of the top 15 college football teams, and we saw BYU at 14, and it's a 12-team playoff, and that could put the Cougars on the outside looking in. A really good year, 3 years in a row. At 14, you're really good, but you're also on the outside looking in. Feel pretty strongly about that, or, hey, you got to put a list out, and there's not much separation, and who the heck knows?
The latter portion of that statement. Listen, at this stage, when you're doing these, and I do them for, as I like to say in the business, blanks and giggles, okay? I do this for fun. I'm paid to call ball, not to predict ball. But I am into it like anybody else would be. And I used to do this when I had my daily radio show that was simulcasted on CBS Sports Network years ago. And I just sort of carried it over and kept doing it because it created conversation, which I love. And I sort of lost with the show. And I don't want to do what you guys do anymore. Trust me, I don't. But I did lose some of the, direct contact with fans. And this sort of enables that to happen. Now, a lot of it is toxic. And, that comes with the territory. But I do enjoy that. And I'm oftentimes told, hey, Tim, we do like it when you respond. Very few people in my business that do what I do will respond on social media, and I like to do that if it's civil. And this spawns conversation, helps get me excited for the start of the year. But to answer your question, any of those teams, I even put out an angry 8 for the schools that I left out of the top 15 because the fans that were really pissed after I put out the top 15 were those that I didn't have in there, like Michigan, like USC, like Alabama. And those teams really could have great years. Okay, I've looked at this. There's a false narrative out there that's been created by a bunch of ESPN propagandists that believe that they should stay at 16. This latest story that you guys are reading about in terms of, well, let's go to 20, but we'll call it 16 because we're gonna do a play-in. That's more propaganda. It's coming up at the 11th hour. That's very similar to what happened with Texas. And if you guys remember this, because you're out west, remember the story back in 2011? Larry Scott was pulling this coup, and he was going to get the Pac-10 to go to a Pac-16.
Yep.
Well, it got undermined when DeLoss Dodds, the athletic director at Texas, agreed to a $30 million one-pay-only deal to create the Longhorn Network, which, in effect, saved the Big 12, saved teams like Kansas, Iowa State, Kansas State that would all have been kicked to the curb by those teams moving out west to the Pac-16. And Burt Magnus is a pretty smart guy. He's a programming guy. That's one of their big leaders, and I respect him. He came up with this idea, and it definitely kept the SEC where it is, the Big 12 for a period of time where it was, which enabled, of course, the SEC to get those teams like Texas and Oklahoma that the Pac-10 so badly wanted to get. And I see this story that popped up during their conversations that they had yesterday as a reminder of that this is another example of a late move by the rights holder to hold on to what they've got and not share it with other media partners because it's in the contract. Anything beyond 16 is ESPN loses control. It's open for bidding. Other networks can be involved. So, that's going on right now, okay? And I think there are a lot of people out there that would give you this false narrative that only about 8 teams could really ever win a national championship. Fellas, that's bogus. That is bogus. And if you really believe that, you'd have to have amnesia from a year ago. How many times did you guys have to remind people how legitimate Indiana really was?
Yeah.
Okay, because people didn't believe Indiana could do what Indiana did. If ever there were proof that more than just 8 teams now could win it all, Indiana was that. That's Exhibit A. And I would tell you this year when I'm trying to put together my top 15 and especially the top 12, because I'm projecting, this is a starting grid. This isn't like a AP poll or a coaches poll for me. I'm predicting the way it's going to finish. Okay, like people are going, UNLV, hell, they on there for. But don't you know the rules? There's got to be a group of 5 or now a group of 6 team in the top 12. And UNLV, particularly with the Mountain West teams all migrating to the new Pac-12, that's the lone team left in that league. And I believe they're strong enough to get through that schedule. Once they beat Memphis, and I think they will beat Memphis in week 0, and that's self-promotion here. I'm going to mention David Gardner and I have that game on August 29th. That's the week 0 game. That's a very important game because Memphis is another one of those teams could very easily be, the representative from the group of 6. But I think Dan Mullen's done a hell of a job. And I think the league he's got to navigate now in the Mountain West is far easier now with the teams that have left to form the new Pac-12. But I had trouble putting together 15 that I thought were significantly in a better position than the 8 teams that I left out. And most of it is schedule related. Most of it has to do with having the right schedule to go along with the proper pieces. So, listen, I think as many as 30 teams, maybe 35, think that they could make the field of 12. And I think of those 35 or so teams, as many as 15 could win the whole thing. I mean that. I mean it sincerely. With the roster changes year to year, with the NIL and portal all working in concert, we've already seen the justification for that philosophy. But the old guard, particularly at ESPN, and its propagandists, many of them media members in the South that have a big voice, those writers that you see and hear from on a regular basis that are anti-Big Ten, anti-Tony Petitti, they want to have you believe that only watering down the regular season is so crucial. Well, that's just bogus now. Absolutely bogus. The regular season would only be incentivized if we had 24 teams. I thought it was a good idea when it was first mentioned. And now you see everybody else within college football is on board with this, with the exception of who? Greg Sankey and the SEC. There's a reason for that. And that's the reason why this 11th hour move to we're going to have a 20-team format, but we're only calling it 16. Well, if it were 20, really 20, then ESPN would lose its rights that it holds right now under the 12-team format till 2032. That's the issue here. Got to follow the money, fellas. Please follow the money.
That's for sure. I think the Big 12 needs that expansion because they haven't had a second team in, and that is something that needs to happen. We'll see if it happens this year.
Yeah, they're good teams. Yeah, they're good teams. I mean, BYU is a really good team. I would have BYU in the top 12 if not for the fact the Notre Dame game is there. Now, that is a great opportunity for BYU. Okay, and if I'm proven to be wrong, it's because they beat Notre Dame. But that's a tough ask.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, in my opinion, has the second best roster in college football. Oregon's got the best roster. But here's the issue for Oregon. They got 2 coordinators gone. Okay? That's the thing that separates Indiana for me, even though Josh Hoover is certainly not Fernando Mendoza, and he's certainly not Dante Moore either. But you know what? He's got the same coordinator. Signetti keeps that staff together. I mean, they all know their roles. Anybody thinking Indiana was a one-shot wonder, you're out of your mind. That program is as strong in my mind as any one of the blue bloods that's out there. And if their name was Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, or Notre Dame, they would be ranked preseason number 1. They're not, only because their brand obviously still isn't significant enough to warrant that. But I mean, are we going to just believe the brand name propagandists, or are we going to let our eyes lie to us? I mean, Indiana's really, really good. Defense returns pretty much intact, And from an offensive standpoint, the line that is going to be good through the portal. They handle that. Good running backs. Josh Hoover, who turned it over a lot last year, won't have to win the games by himself now because he's got good runners and a plethora of wide receivers, probably as good as any other than Oregon's in college football.
We're joined right now by Tim Brando, Fox Sports college football and basketball broadcaster. Are there going to be any limits? Do you see the CBA, a collective bargaining agreement coming? Do you see Congress passing anything that would limit the money? Or do you think the money just keeps going? It's capitalism, and here we are.
Well, I think that if that bill had gotten to the Senate floor last Friday, I think it had a chance of passing. Now, the question will be when they come back, when they reconvene in September, after we get close to we're even closer to the midterms. People are thinking, well, they've got so much other stuff, they might not get to it. I think they're going to get to it. Two major reasons why. One, you've got those branches of government still on the Republican side. It matters more to the Republican side because their senators and their congressmen are all big-time college football fans. And the president is a big-time sports fan. College football is certainly very much a part of that fandom that he so loves. And I think the fact that you had Senator Cantwell on the Democratic side to make this at least a bipartisan bill, there is some Democratic support for it. If they don't get there, and if there are other things going on that are a much greater importance, we don't know what's going to happen, obviously, with a number of these other issues that are out there between now and September. But if they don't get it done, then collective bargaining has got to be the answer. Okay, and it's going to be up to the commissioners to understand that they have to work together to make that work. And I was encouraged to see both the Big Ten and the SEC find a way to make this work with some amendments that were made to the bill. And there may be a couple of more wrinkles between now and September to that bill. But if they don't, then you've got to have a CBA. Some form of exemptions have to be there for them to be able to regulate the way they like. But I think the bill's got more legs than a lot of other people that you might talk to believe.
When do you think the expansion of the playoff will be implemented?
Oh, immediately. Next year in 27. If the playoff is expanded to 20, it's going to happen right away. We'll know by December 1, okay, by the end of the year. As usual, college football can't clear itself up, so when the ball starts, we can still just talk about ball. They're going to make us talk about expansion of the playoff, the Senate bill, all of that through the course of the regular season. I wish that weren't the case, but college football, for all of the joy it's brought to many people, including me, through the years, it always finds a way of getting in its own way when it comes to taking eyes and attention off of how great the sport is and onto all the problems the sport is enduring. But all that said, I still believe that it's never been more popular, but it's also never lost as much opportunity to make more money. That's the other thing. By the way, this talk about 16 going into 20 with one rights holder, you're not hearing anything about changing the calendar. You're not hearing anything about, what they can do in terms of ending this thing around January 8th and not January the 25th. And you can bet if ESPN were to convince them to hold on to this 16 versus 20 concept, we can't call it 20 because if we do, we lose the rights. So we'll call it 16, but we're going to have play-in. If that were to happen, we're still going to have the games up against NFL playoff games. ESPN will still be taking about 40% of its inventory and handing it off to Turner because Turner needs to make money for the cable rights to continue to get the money that they get from their subscribers. After they lost the NBA, they were in dire need. So they put all the games that no one watches in the playoffs on Turner because ESPN doesn't want to absorb the ratings defeats that you absorb when you go up against playoff games, wild card games in the NFL. See, that's a crime. And college football would allow itself to have some of its biggest games on opposite NFL games at the end of the regular season and the start of the postseason. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. And they leave a lot of money on the table as a result. I think they'll go to 24 because they're going to see how much money they're missing out on if they don't. Listen, it's all about the money. Forget the conference affiliation. Forget the TV thing. It is about the cash. And they're going to be losing a lot of potential revenue and revenue streams if they don't go to 24. And by the way, without regulation, without any work from the Senate to get this bill passed through, that money's just going to continue to escalate. And eventually the well runs dry, fellas. It runs dry. They need the 24 to exist. That's just the bottom line.
Tim Brando, Fox Sports, joining us. Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan has obviously been a big story here. Everyone's curious how much they're going to win. They have a non-conference game with Oklahoma, who's in the playoff. They play Indiana and Ohio State. And I'm leaving somebody out. They got another big game. Oregon. They go to Oregon in November.
Oregon, yeah.
So those are four massive games, and there's still good teams like Iowa. Maybe Penn State bounces back. How much do you think they're going to win? What does Michigan's season look like?
I don't think it's going to go well. I don't. I think Kyle is going to find out how different it is to be in a program that is microscopic by its fans and by media all the time. At Utah, he had total control. Total control. You guys know that. You were around it. He was very comfortable with it. I'm not sure you guys know the circumstances surrounding why they felt the need to go ahead and get it to Morgan Scalley when they did, and he's certainly deserving of having the job. But Kyle's used to doing it his way. And Michigan is such a huge program, it can engulf you. It can absolutely engulf you. And I think there's a comfort zone that he had where he was for all these years that he's going to find out in a hurry does not exist at Michigan. First and foremost, just media obligations. Okay. Kyle's a really hell of a coach. But if ever you were spending time with him, you knew that the 20 or 30 minutes that you were going to get with him before a game, and that's for the broadcasters that were doing the game, not just the local media, you could always tell that he was in a hurry. He was checking his watch the whole time. Well, at Michigan, they're going to be leaning on you for a lot more of your time. And I think it'll be uncomfortable for him. I also think Bryce Underwood is not there yet. I don't think that his game is where his mouth is. He talks often about how great he sees himself as being as the salvation of Michigan football. And I think he's put a target on himself that he really shouldn't be putting on himself, especially against that schedule. And the offense in and of itself has got great players, yes. And Kyle is getting to coach a level of player that's coming in that he's not had in the past. But with that comes dealing with egos that he's not had to deal with. And Underwood is a numero uno when I bring that up.
Tim, we appreciate it as always. We're glad you got to dip your foot back into the world of radio for about 20 minutes. That's about enough, right?
By the way, tell the Bear, I think I'm not saying he's going to hibernate. I think BYU is going to have a hell of a year. And I'd love to be wrong about them. I'd love to see two Big 12 teams get in. And I think they've got a really good shot. I do.
Yeah, we'd love to see it too.
Tim, thank you. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again down the road.
Good to be with you, fellas. Thank you.
DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. A lot of that was familiar, right? Close, but the Big 12, there's that perception going in.
Yeah, they needed to expand, so get on with it. If we're going to go 24, let's do it.
Follow the money, though. He's right about that. And ESPN doesn't want it to go back out to bid. So I just wonder if we're stuck at 12 for a while because the SEC doesn't budge and they just get dug in, and the Big Ten gets dug in and they don't budge. And if they can't agree, then here we are.
Doesn't seem like it. I think that there will be a lot of public pressure to cave into it. And what is the SEC's reasoning for not going? What is something that would just catch on attention, thinking, oh, yeah, that's exactly right. That's what we need to do. I don't know that there's a reason out there.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We'll get you up to date. Everything you missed in this show coming up next. Slacker headlines are on the way. Stay with us.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeComb.
For Utah, it's offense and maybe defensive line, but primarily the offensive line. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I got to dig a little deeper here. But honestly, the more I kept looking at it, the more I kept thinking, it really comes down to those two position groups. Can Utah have offensive linemen that can step up?
You know, I think the big question mark outside of the offensive line for Utah nationally is Morgan Scalley.
Yeah.
But, nobody even talks about that around here because I think everybody has a real comfort factor with the way things looked in that bowl game, honestly. But the bottom line was they were sharp. They took advantage of opportunity more so than maybe a Whittingham team would. It felt like the guys were loose and ready to ball. That's like a sign. And then you hear all the stuff from the guys, how happy they are.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 1-855-TRAJAN1 or visit the website at TrajanWealth.com. NBA schedule coming out this week. Like the NFL, a little bit at a time. Try to stay in the headlines. Keep getting mentioned in the news. The opening night, Tuesday, October 20, triple header. Detroit Pistons and the Boston Celtics, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the New York Knicks. LeBron and the presumed challengers to the champs. And then it wraps up with the Thunder and the Spurs, a rematch of the Western Conference Final. The Christmas Day matchups are set. The Spurs are playing the Knicks. The Heat are playing the Celtics. The Sixers and the Lakers. The Thunder and the Wolves. And then the Nuggets and the Warriors. So there you go. Now, there are obviously some marquee matchups out there, and they'll probably have 4 games with the Sixers and the Knicks. So plenty of games still to be out there. We'll get the NBC Sunday night schedule. What does ESPN get for their couple of nights, and Amazon? So we'll see. MLK Day, another holiday that tends to get a lot of games. President's Day. Load them up. Jazz, we haven't seen their schedule yet. They'll probably, with the triple header on Tuesday, assume that most of the league will open up Wednesday and maybe a few teams on Thursday. So the Jazz will probably open it up on the 21st, maybe the 22nd. We'll get that schedule shortly. Hockey starts on the 1st. Everything's coming together. Baseball put out their postseason schedule for October. Get ready. The month of October, like the month of March, so much going on. Talked a lot of football this morning. Mitch Harper, BYU insider for KSL Sports, joined us. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcast, KSLSports.com, KSL Sports app, YouTube, on down the line, wherever you want. Talked a lot about BYU and the money and how much are they going to get? When are they going to get it? Is it ever going to be enough? Is there going to be donor fatigue? Is there enough for everything football wants and enough for everything the basketball wants? Or is someone always going to be unhappy? Or will someone always be unhappy because you were telling us earlier today about an email you got with somebody who's unhappy with Brian Santiago from something in the past? I don't know how many years ago. I mean, he's been there basically 30 years, and I think an administrator role. I mean, he's in basketball at first, but then administrator role in the athletic department for about 20. So to a certain degree, the die is cast with all the personalities and the history.
Yeah, you'd have to clean house completely, and that would take a long time. But there's people that didn't like him when he was in prior administrative roles, and a lot of those folks are still there. Now, one of the folks that I spoke to, been gone back and forth, is not there anymore and didn't like him. Arrogant was the word. And I get it. But, you've got to give him an opportunity to develop into this role. It's still in the early stages. But that thing is going to stick there, that the fact is that, he was fine if Kalani wanted to go, and I think that's going to create a problem, and it has created a problem. and they're not the best of friends there, if that means something. And I just don't know that BYU's ever going to have the money, and I also think that Kalani's going to have to come to terms with it and just stop talking about it.
He just did an interview. It's out on social media. Doesn't seem like the stop talking about it part will happen very quickly. Now, maybe it's partly the time of year also. He's available to talk right now. The games will start, and as Tim Brando just said when he was on with us, you got all these storylines in the offseason, the local ones with the teams. It's Kalani here. It's Morgan being brand new. Tim Brando talked about Kyle. Thinks there are going to be some new and big challenges in Michigan when we get to the games, and then how much will the focus turn to them? Or will the results of the games put more gas on the fire of this conversation?
Well, yeah, but you can argue, gosh, I mean, you've been doing great with what we've been giving you. And you want to win it all, but only one team wins it all.
So win it all national title or win it all conference title?
Both.
Or one step at a time?
I mean, the conference title is, to an extent, irrelevant.
If it stays in one big league, the relevance to that is it gets you in the playoff.
But I don't think that's going to happen. But you get in the playoff, but then if you get worked.
Right.
Is BYU going to be a perennial contend? You can talk about it, but is it really going to happen?
Wouldn't bet on it. Seen some unusual things in football lately, but I still also see a lot of Ohio State and Michigan, and Notre Dame's top 5, and that's decades of that.
He's talking about, well, we're not talking about competing with Texas Tech. We want to compete with all these other teams in the conference. Okay, but we want to compete at a national level. Well, now you got to open it up, and you got to go above Texas Tech. Is that really going to happen? You can talk about it all you want, but what are the chances of that happening?
Even if you say they're thin, there are people who are like, well, if you only got one chance in 20, I'll take it. One chance in 50. I mean, so much of sports comes back to hope because the results so often, and you can go back, type in list of whatever big-time program you want. They have long stretches, and there's 7-8 wins. It happens to everybody. I mean, Texas got a lot of money and a lot of tradition, a lot of talent in state. They've had plenty of 7 and 8 win seasons. This whole notion that you're going to go to the top and you're going to stay there, it's just not the way the world works.
So there might be people at BYU saying, hey, man, we sell out every game.
We sell out every game. We win 10 wins. We're ranked in the top 20. That's good enough.
Well, let's be realistic. Is BYU in Provo, Utah going to compete with the big-time big dogs? I would throw the same thing at Texas Tech. You can throw as much money in as you want, but are they going to be able to compete with the big? Their first year with the money, no. They were humiliated.
It was a beating.
Yeah. And this year is going to be different?
Yeah, it couldn't really even be debated. I mean, they were acknowledging it after the game. I don't know, maybe it goes back to what you said about the SEC, and you were told, by a coach, hey, that part of the country doesn't have the most money. So this thing they've been doing here the last couple of decades is no longer sustainable with these new NIL rules.
Right.
So then it would go just to the western part of the country. Is there that kind of money? I mean, maybe for USC and Oregon. I mean, Los Angeles is just so big and so wealthy. And Oregon, that's a one-off. You got somebody who's got money from an international conglomerate.
That he traded, yeah.
Right. And then beyond that, I mean, Washington's got a lot of money and a lot of tradition and back to 7 and 8 win seasons. It's hard. They caught lightning in a bottle, but then they lost their coach. So we'll see how quick they get back.
Well, we have to see that, on the other hand, you got Tim Brando saying there could be 30 teams. And this idea that there's only 8 is ridiculous. So it's still new. And I just saw a thing right now that Northwestern got a $35 million thing, and they got a new stadium opening. Mm-hmm. And so maybe there's room. Maybe this will be a game changer, and somebody like a BYU can go into – if BYU was more of a – if it was just if it wasn't a religious institution and a place where, 95% of the people of the same faith, it takes a different kind of kid to want to go there. And so that, and even they've softened the rules and the hair and the earrings and blah, blah, blah. And we've, I was told some other stuff about a kid bringing his girlfriend who he had a kid with on a bowl situation, and they stayed in the same room. And believe it if you want. If you don't want to, I don't really care. Or, another kid getting someone pregnant and no suspension as long as there's child support payments. And they've changed, and I'm fine. I don't care what their rules are. They change all they want. It makes no difference to me. But still, it's not going to be for everyone. So you have that component there. And I just wonder, but maybe this is a leveling out to an extent. I want to give it 10 years before I start making all these assumptions one way or the other. And we're not at the 10 year. We're not even halfway through with the NIL yet.
But kind of chasing your tail around the argument, 30 teams have a chance, but they're still, even if they open up the thing so there's 24, well, only 8 teams can make it to the quarterfinals. Something is going to
thin. It's not the same.
Something's going to thin the herd. Now that's the thing. If it isn't the same 8 teams, and if you are going to have your one shot in a decade, and then you can ride with that for a while.
Maybe there's new teams. Maybe Indiana and Northwestern and these teams and BYU. Maybe they're here to stay. On the surface, I don't agree with Tim Brando, but that's his thought, and he knows a lot about it. Doesn't seem to me that there's that many teams that would have.
I thought 30, when I heard the number, I thought 30 was aggressive. Yeah. The number may have widened, but at the same time, I just wonder if Indiana's in, but they just replaced Florida, who's out. You know what I mean? Did someone just push someone aside? Miami was in for a long time, and then for 20 years, Miami was out, pushed aside by somebody else.
I want to go to the future rather than go to the past and because the NIL is only 2 or 3 years old. So I don't care what happened in the 90s. That might as well be 5,000 years ago. That doesn't matter anymore.
But when someone gets in, does someone get pushed out? Because you can't change a rule and get more than 4. I haven't gotten to the end of it yet. My gosh. You can't change a rule.
Suck. What the hell?
Well, you can't change a rule and get more than 4 teams into the semis and more than 8 teams into the quarters.
And that's breaking news, DJ. I needed to not talk, so you tell me only 4 teams can get in the final? No effing kidding. That'll always be the case.
There's going to be 30 in there, and we're all going to do it.
30 teams can compete. If you think that was profound, that only 4 teams... Tim is not talking about the actual 4. There's only 1 team that can win.
They're competing now. They just haven't gotten to that level. And BYU's competing for it now.
Everybody is then. No, they're not. They're not competing for what?
They're sitting at 10-2. They're trying to be one of the best teams in the country. They're getting very close. That's close.
So
now
was
there's
Utah.
a line at 12.
So was Utah.
Yes, but we're talking about BYU. But you're right. Utah is too. So you can say there's 30. You can increase the playoffs, but there's still you're going to get squeezed at the end. And is that good enough?
Well, everybody's
going to
get squeezed at the end except 1 team. That's not breaking news.
So is that good enough?
The idea is what good enough? Yeah, that 30 teams go into the season thinking they have a chance. That's what Tim is talking about. He's not talking about the actual statistics of it goes to 8, to 4, to 2, to 1. Duh! I mean, that's not what he's saying. He's talking about 30 teams at the start of the season believe that they have, and then the widespread conversation, the ESPN game days, and the Fox Big Noon, and all that stuff. They're actually believing there's this national sentiment that, wow, 30 teams, we don't really know. That's what Tim is, the concept of 30 teams, not the literal application of the playoff brackets. That's what he's saying. That's at least the way I took it. And can we get to that point? If we can get to that point, that'll be great. But I have serious doubts we can get to that point. That's what he's talking about. I think he knows damn well that it goes from 8 to 4 to 2 to 1.
And they're going to play the hits and talk about the teams they always talk about. Ole Miss.
That's what he's talking about.
Ole Miss is in Indiana, but are people really talking about Ole Miss? And they're making more lists than they used to because they were there last year. We'll see with the coaching change.
That's my whole point.
So is that enough?
We need a 10-year time frame to be able to evaluate it. That's why I want to look ahead. We're only 2 or 3 years into it, so I want to go to the 10-year mark, and then we'll have some history and some evidence to see. It won't be known in 2026. It won't be known in 2027. I think basically we've got to get to probably 2035, and then we'll have a big body of evidence to know when Tim Brando said in the summer of 2026 whether it's true or not. That's the fun part of it, and we'll have to see. That's the way I see it. I could be wrong, and so be it. And I'll be quiet, and you can tell us that it goes from 8-4 to 2-1.
I think the reason you'll be wrong in 2035 is we'll look back at the 10 years. But the thing that created that 10-year sample size will have changed because we will have gone through conference realignment, and there'll be a whole new set of parameters. And some teams will benefit from that, and some teams will probably be hurt by it.
Well, I don't know that I'll be wrong because I haven't made any prediction. I don't think so. I don't think that we'll see significant change and the umbrella will be cast way bigger, and we will have 20. I would even say 15. Could I even go 15? I think it would be great for the sport because I've said for me personally, when we get to November, I sort of get burned out on it at that point because, it's the same teams. And good on Indiana. Who wasn't rooting for Indiana last year? It's something fresh. It's something different. And I would love to see 5 to 10 more Indianas. But I have serious doubt that that's the way it'll be because, like this private equity, if the private equity works for Utah, then Ohio State will have it. There's no doubt in my mind. If it's something that is a bonanza, that's why I don't have any problem with Utah giving it a shot. What do they got to lose? They're up against it anyway. They went 11-10, they went 11-2 last year, and nobody talked about them. That seems ridiculous. I would love to have the 24, and then they're talked about. They never really got a chance to show how really good they were. It would have been cool to see because there's been plenty of teams that win titles that, like when they're in the Rose Bowl, gosh, they had 3 losses, but they went in the Rose Bowl, right? And that was really fun. Well, now with the playoff at just this limited amount and the Big 12 being looked at as a one-bid league, they never really got a shot. I mean, so they lost to BYU. They get one shot, and they lost to them by 3 points. You're out. That seems a little short-sighted.
As opposed to Ohio State, who won a national title, having just come up short in November.
Bingo. Yes, exactly. Outstanding point.
But you're Ohio State.
But that would never happen over here.
Ohio State gets a second bite at the apple because they're Ohio State, and Utah or whoever else doesn't get the bite of the apple.
Right.
But for all those flaws and imperfections, and life ain't fair, and everybody isn't starting at home plate, some people are starting in the dugout, and some people are starting on third base, somehow Indiana, Ole Miss, and Miami were standing late in the season when, the Alabamas and the Oklahomas and the USCs and Notre Dames were all done.
Because it's put to a vote. And somebody decided that Miami was continuing and the schools that you just mentioned were
Notre
done.
Dame was put out by a vote, but Oklahoma and Alabama were put out on the field. They were knocked out. So some teams were eliminated by the committee in a room, which isn't fun. And other teams, Alabama got run off the field in Pasadena. They just got crushed.
Yeah, but they got in, right?
They did get in.
Yeah,
but when you get down to the Final Four and there's real excitement and everybody's, Ole Miss was still there, Indiana was still there, Miami was still there.
Sure. But they still got voted in, and one got voted out. Well, that's just opinion. That's not even close to fact. You could say, they've used all this metrics and all this other stuff, but it still comes down to a vote. It didn't come down to completely the way it is at the professional ranks where you do this, you do that. And Tulane got in. I don't know this, but I would think Utah would have a good shot against Tulane. But there's some archaic system that allows it. So I've talked myself into expanding to 24. I wanted to take it easy, go interim, and then move up, or I don't know if interim's the right word.
Just kind of walk it up. You wanted to go from 12 to 16, see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Then maybe go to 24.
Now they're talking about that, and I'm starting to think, why in the world did not BYU and Utah get a chance to get in last year? Because of some system. And Utah losing by 3 points to BYU, all of a sudden you're out? I mean, somebody's there. Every game there's a winner and a loser. And do we really know that BYU was much better? Now, they beat them, good for them. And that should account for something. But it didn't count for enough.
But we see in the NFL when teams play a second and a third time, you get a different result.
And if we expand it, and I assume this is what Tim is talking about, when it's expanded to 24, then that will broaden the foundation of legitimacy of teams who have that chance. I don't know. I hope when we get to 2025, I think it would be good for the sport if there were more teams and we didn't have, well, it's just going to be the same. We'll just pass it around a little bit here.
The Big Ten did have a proposal, and it got shouted down, and it's largely gone away, although who's to say it couldn't be resurrected, that with the 2014 playoff, the Power Four leagues would each get 4 teams in. There wouldn't be a committee picking it. You'd have to finish in the top 4 in the standings, and you'd be in. And I think they had 2 spots for the G5 and then 1 for Notre Dame if they met some. So they would have the committee down to just picking 5 of the 24 teams. And you'd have 19 teams with a chance to play their way in. Maybe that gets resurrected. I thought there were some bonuses to that, but that died pretty quickly. And they also had conference championship weeks with, triple headers for every conference and 6 teams playing for the 4 spots. They had a whole thing.
I realize there's got to be a committee because you've got to start the brackets. Unless they did it completely at the NFL model. But you can't really do it at the NFL model because there's such wide variances. That's why I don't want college statistics. You're third in the country and this and that. That doesn't fly. In the NBA, if you're third in defensive rating, you're a really good defensive team. That matters. But in colleges, it's too much difference between one with another.
Is moving the bag back to 16, 24 teams, whatever, because in college basketball, when you get to the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, the Final Four, there's this acknowledgement like you've really made it, you've accomplished something, depending on the school, right? Duke doesn't celebrate Sweet 16s, but a lot of schools do. And there are other teams that celebrate Final Fours, but they can't really win titles. And so when we get to that in football, is that going to be good enough? If you're BYU or Utah and you're able to get to an 8, is that going to be good enough? We feel like we're the big boys, or is it just moving the bag back and now they need more money so they can go get to a semi, to a final, to a title game?
I think if you build on it, yes.
So then it won't be good enough.
Well,
you'll be expected to build on it.
Well, it's the Phil Mickelson theory. If you are knocking on the door of a major 7 times and then you get it, yeah. And Phil proved that. He was legitimate. His talent was legitimate because he got there, and then he broke through, and then he broke through again. So if they build on it in the manner of a Phil Mickelson, which is awfully hard, I get that, then yes.
Your feedback next. Stay with us. Join Scotty G and the coach Friday, 10 to 2, Tim Dahle Mazda, 10785 South Auto Mall Drive in Sandy. Quotes through the morning. Why doesn't BYU give the football program more money? Man, the Utes and Aggies are enjoying this. Cheese Fries, who's a huge Ute fan. BYU's a poverty program. Surprising Cougs can't any dudes at all with the NIL consistent with free Wendy's Frosty and used car lease.
That's a waste of time. You need to stop.
Vic Saunders, one true Aggie. It's BYU.
You got to come to me with some logic, not junior high fan talk.
Daniel says because at BYU, all of BYU Athletics is self-funded from ticket sales and private donations. No funding comes from BYU itself. Ultimately, the bank vault's only so big. We were just talking about that in the break. The BYU will not get outbid. As these other teams accelerate, are we sure that's true?
Well, Santiago said that was a misquote, which I don't believe, but that's what he said. He told us I didn't get a chance to interview him this year because I was on break down in Dallas. But when I interviewed him 2 years ago and I questioned him on it, he said that was a misquote. So I think they will get outbid. In some cases, they won't get outbid. Some cases, they'll be the highest bidder. In other cases, they won't be. I mean, I got hooked up with a gal golfing randomly, and she played at BYU, and she's really good, and she's non-LDS. I said, why'd you go there? And they gave me the most. It was fun to play with her as she kicked the crap out of me. It was really good.
Tyson, they'll give the football program more money once they see the impact a lack of money has in the win-loss column. If BYU continues to win at a high rate with the budget they currently have, it'd be tough to convince them that they need to spend more on the program.
But see, I think they are spending enough to have a really good team.
And that's why they are winning 10 games and nationally ranked more years than not.
So far, since the implementation of it, exactly. Yes, totally. Well said. Yes, that's exactly it.
It's 2 of 3 in the Big 12, which is really the NIL era. It's 4 of 6 if you go back a little further to where he really gets it rolling.
He wants it more. I think there might be a chasm there between what he wants and what they're willing to give. We'll see. And if that's the case, then he'll have to make a decision, because if they roll out another 10, 11-win season, well, that's a freaking football powerhouse, especially when he's stating we're expected to do more with less. Well, come here, big guy. You won't have to do more with less. We'll give you everything you want.
DJ and PK, we're out of time. Scotty G and the coach Tim Lacombe coming up next right here on The Zone.